but we have safe fall as rogues, so you will not be taking any fall damage. On PTR, there's a bug where the impale goes only on the main tank, meaning that he doesn't use this mechanic. Essentially, he only hits the tank harder. This is a bug, by all means, and should be fixed. But if it's not, this fight is going to be even more of a joke than anticipated. Now, every about 100 seconds or so, this says 70 to 120, PTR says it's about 100 seconds, he will cast a spell that causes a 30-yard AoE around him. It is going to have an animation, much like this. He will raise his back and let lots of locusts out. In 30 yards, it will slow everyone, it will silence people, and it will do damage. You have about 3 or 4 seconds to move away, which should be plenty for melee to simply run to the middle. The tank will at that point start moving in either clockwise or counterclockwise fashion. Doesn't matter which one, just need to make sure we're all on the same page about which one. And kiting the boss around the corners. Now he moves incredibly slowly. He moves to 40% of normal movement speed at this point. So even if you're at the edge, you will not be stuck. He will not be following you. You will be able to break out of there. And when he does this ability, he also summons another crypt guard. So while the tank is kiting, the DPS will simply be killing the crypt guard. Of course, the crypt guard will spawn in corpse scarabs, and those will be killed as well. Ideally, if you're kiting it to the east, you obviously want the crypt guard over on the west, as it can do a net, and you don't want people to be stuck. The boss has, I believe, about 1.8 million HP, meaning it is not super high. It is about the same as Chromagus health-wise, so it will probably last 1.5, maybe 2 minutes. Which means we will probably be seeing a locust swarm, but just after that it will most likely die. And that is pretty much it for Anubrakan. Quite simple. The only thing most people have to worry about is the locust swarm. Just make sure you're not stood near the boss when it does it. The impale goes out every 15 seconds or so, not an issue. Healers heal those people up, done. Move back to trash. So once you've dealt with that, you'll be heading back here. We'll be going up here, up to the northeast. Now, up the northeast, we find Carrion Spinners and Crypt Reaver. Let's quickly find those. They are quite simple. The Carrion Spinners are the same ones we talked about before. The ones that have a web pull and the ones that have a frontal cone poison ability. We'll simply tank these, facing them away. They don't hit very hard, so one tank should be good for multiple of them as long as they keep threat. And the Crypt Reaver, similarly easy. It uses Cleave, it applies a poison to the main tank. Tankiest of tanks, pick these up. Again, they don't do much damage. Someone tank this and kill the spinners, and then kill the Reaver. Next up on the list, we have a bunch more infectious skitters. Same things, they don't do anything. They hit whoever they're hitting a bit harder. We AoE them down, we kill them. After that, 2 Necrostalker. Necrostalkers are basically renamed and slightly rebranded Venom Stalker. There's 2 of them. They also only have a poison charge. It will be harder to LOS as there is no fancy wall, but since those are the only target, we can stack them up, cleave them down. Again, poison resistance, elixir of poison resistance or anti-venom, very useful on this. I'd recommend bringing a stack, just bring 5. If you don't use them all, visit us, use them on next week. I don't know. More infectious skitters along the way. We'll deal with those. Then comes Naxxramas Cultists and Naxxramas Acolyte. These can be quite dangerous. They are humanoid. Both of them are quite AoE heavy. The Cultists have an AoE knockback, that does shadow damage and is a complete threat wipe. So tanks need to make sure that if they're knocked back, you pick them up quick again. Naxxramas Acolytes have a Shadow Bolt volley that they cast and hits all players in 30 yards for about 1000 damage. They also cast Arcane Explosion, 6-yard range, so should only hit melee, hits for about 600. Now the Shadow Bolt volley can be interrupted, and should be. As said, there are 6 Acolytes. If all 6 were to get their Shadow Bolt volley off, we would all be taking 6000 shadow damage. So we will be marking these, making sure that, just like Sulfur and Harbinger, everyone has a target, interrupt that target. They don't have a lot of health again, they have 25,000. There's 8 of them, so enjoy your AoE. In particular, there are 4 packs of these. Technically, you can skip them by pulling the boss. By skipping them, however, you will be pulling them when you pull the boss, so that is not advised. You should be clearing all of these for that reason. There's also the Infectious Skitterers patrolling in this room, so in the middle of these, after clearing perhaps the front 2, we'll make sure to pull this and AoE them down, just like any other Infectious Skitterers. What's number 2? We got Grand Widow Ferelina. She's again rather simple. I would recommend popping a Greater Fire Protection Potion before this boss. It will probably not be mandatory in the future, but for safety's sake, please do. She in total has 3 abilities. She has a Poison Bolt volley. That kind of works like Huron and Visitos mixed together. It hits the 10 people closest to her every 10 seconds. Does 1450 initial nature damage, applies a debuff that does 450 damage every 2 seconds. If anyone takes this, cleanse the poison. It's a bit nasty. The second ability she does is Rain of Fire. If you have fought, what is his name, Gehennas in Molten Core, which I believe all of us have, it's the same Rain of Fire. It applies on a random person, it takes down, if you're standing in it, you will take fire damage. So the way to counter this is you move out of the fire. It's quite simple. 60 seconds into the fight, she will be enraging. Her attack speed increased by 75%, she starts hitting 500 damage higher. This makes her hit very hard, and we don't really want this happening for very long. So how do we do this? It's not tranking, it's not that quite simple. Here comes the part where she has ads. She has, I believe, 2 followers and 4 worshippers. The followers have 100,000 HP, and they do have an AoE silence. You will not notice it. 100k HP burns down quite quickly. You stack them up with the boss, you cleave them down, focusing them first. The worshippers, on the other hand, will be tanked. Again, they don't hit very hard, so 2 tanks could handle 4 worshippers, as long as no one is hitting them, which they should not do. Why? We'll get to that. They have 250k HP, so they can take some damage. Most importantly, you can mind control them, and once mind control, they will have a sacrifice ability. So you run up to the boss, you press the sacrifice ability, and the worshipper dies. That seems like a good way to clear the ads. What it also does is make her not enrage. It will remove the enrage, and it will silence her for 30 seconds. So there are kind of 2 methods to doing this boss. Either, as soon as we pull, you can mind control the worshipper and simply do this. You mind control it, you sacrifice it. This will make sure that she does not cast Poison Bolt volley. It disables that, and it disables her enraging for 30 seconds. The Rain of Fire will still be a thing, but it will be the only thing you have to worry about. 30 seconds pass. In order to not enrage, you mind control another one. You sacrifice it, continue on. 30 seconds more, another one. 30 seconds more, another one. This gives us 2 minutes before she will enrage. If she were to enrage, we could probably survive it with intense healing. But 2 minutes should, if we have world buffs, not be a problem. She has 1.5 million HP. This is... Currently, we kill Flameboar, who is quite simple fight, really, in 1 minute. He has 1 million health. So going by that, it will take us 90 seconds to kill her, as long as people don't mess up on the Rain of Fire. The second way to do this is probably safer. You let her enrage. At 60 seconds, she will enrage. At that point, you should have a mind-controlled ad ready, and as soon as she enrages, you pop the sacrifice. This silences her for 30 seconds again, but it also means that she cannot enrage for another 60 seconds if you cleanse it. So you can either prevent the enrage altogether, or you can cleanse it. Cleansing gives you more time, but it would mean taking poison bolt volleys. So that is something that you have to judge our DPS. We will figure out if which strategy we'll be going for. And in the end, the fight boils down to, there's a rain of fire, don't stand in the fire. That is the fight. Moving back, so we'll be moving back down here to the southeast. Next up we have some more spooky names. We have Dread Creepers and Tomb Horror. Now Dread Creepers are the curse AoE ones, the ones that reduce healing. And then we also have Tomb Horrors. They have one ability with a funny name. They have an ability called Pointy Spike. This ability does a pointy spike on the tank. It's a slam. It's exactly a slam. It's a charged attack that does 1,500 damage. Really, this doesn't do anything. You stack everything together. Stack them together with the Dread Creepers. You decurse whenever the curse goes out on the main tanks, tanking things, and you kill them. There's no AoE, there's nothing fancy. It's just decursing and AoE, simple. 10 Infectious Skitterers, again they patrol, so make sure you know where they are before you pull. You don't want to be ambushed by them. Same pack again, 4 Dread Creepers, 1 Tomb Horror. Now next comes Plagued Ghoul. These sound scary, but they're really not. They are the exact same but amped up versions of the Stratholm ghouls. They have a disease called flesh rot. It makes people take more damage. It's not very nice. Can be cleansed, of course, like any disease. And when below 50% health, they will frenzy. So you stack them up, you clean them down, you make sure to be healing the tanks at 50%. These are the only things. So again, 4 people tank it, 4 people get a lot of heals. We have no problem. Now in the middle you can see a Spirit of Naxxramas. You can fight this, which if you do fight this it's quite simple, it does AoE Shadow Bolt. You kill it. But what you can also do is simply hop into the little slime here, and that allows you to skip the Plagued Ghouls and the Spirit of Naxxramas, as well as these Necrostalker completely. Allow you to move into the next room. Now, the Necropolis Acolytes are next to you, will be facing in this doorway. They have again 2 abilities, Shadow Bolt Volley and Arcane Explosion. They're basically tankier versions of the Acolytes we faced before. I don't believe they can be interrupted, but as there are only 2 of them, the key is to simply AoE heal, stack them, kill them. They don't have a lot of health, in fact they have 65,000 health, which should not be a problem for burning down. You have, in this room, you have patrolling around Plagued Gargoyles, also quite simple. They have 2 abilities, one is not listed here, but I'll go over that in a second. Plagued Gargoyles have an Acid Volley that does a 25-second stacking dot. Sounds scary, especially since there are 2 of them. In reality the dot does close to nothing. I believe each stack does something like 50 damage per second. You will most likely end fights with maybe 4, so you'll be taking 200 damage per second. It ends up being a bit. It cannot be cleansed by any means. It's not poison. It's not dot. It is a dot. It's not a disease, rather, is what I meant. So the only way to counter this, not get more stacks, is kill them, get out of combat, wait to 25 seconds. So that's the only note. Be careful when pulling these that you don't pull both at the same time, obviously. And when you're done fighting, probably play safe, let the stacks drop, then they engage the next pack. Next up we have another pack from Naxxramas Acolytes, the AoE ones. Burn them down quick. Spirit of Naxxramas, I believe it can be skipped once more. If we're not killing it, then, you know, Shadow Bolt Volley. Easy peasy, kill it. Plague Ghouls. Watch tanks. And then, once all that is dead, we are at the final boss of the Spiderwing, Naxxramas. Just have some tea, excuse me. Naxxramas can be... it's the final boss. All the final bosses are a bit more complex, and this one is no exception. It is still not super complex. So, we're going to be entering from the southwest here. What we're most likely going to do is simply put the boss in the middle of the room, put melee behind the boss, put tanks in front of the boss, put casters and healers behind the melee line along the wall. The first ability we are going to see is Web Wrap. This is going to hit, I believe it's 3 players. 3 random players that is not a tank, and it will push them back until they hit a wall. When they do hit a wall, it will encase them in a cocoon, dealing 650 to 850 damage every 2 seconds. And the way to break out of this is not dispelling. You cannot bubble it, there's nothing you can do to break it basically. What you do is, the cocoon is an NPC that can be attacked. So they have 6,000 health. So to do this we simply have the casters turn around, attack the 3 cocoons, burn them down. Once the cocoon is dead, you drop to the ground. It's not very far, you won't take fall damage. Drop to the ground. If you're a melee, you get back into melee. If you're a caster, you get back in line. This goes out every 40 seconds, but the first one in combat is done after 20 seconds. The web spray is the main ability, we'll be skipping this for now. Poison Shock is another ability. On average it does 2000 damage in a 15-yard frontal cone. This is why we put everyone behind, as well as Harry Haste. I know I complain about it all the time. Next up we have Necrotic Poison. This applies to the main tank only. What it does is reduce healing taken by 90% for 30 seconds. It means that your healing will do close to nothing. As you might expect, Necrotic Poison is a poison. So you simply have Paladins cleanse it, or Druids abolish poison. And abolish poison is going to get very important in just a second. At 30% you will enrage, hitting very hard and very fast. It's very important that we have big heals on the tank for this moment, and it's very important that we time the other mechanics. She will spawn 8 to 10 spiders after 30 seconds in the fight, and 40 seconds each time after that. They have about 4,000 health, do 100 to 150 physical damage, so they are not very dangerous on their own. We should aim to AoE these down before the last mechanic, however, which is Web Spray. Every 40 seconds of fight she will be casting this. This will incapacitate all players for 8 seconds, dealing 1750 to 2250 nature damage. So incapacitate, this is all players. All healers, all casters, all melee, the main tank will be unable to press any button, attack, do anything for 8 seconds. You cannot bubble this off. You cannot DI if someone tried that on PTR. You cannot pop Petrification Flask. You cannot do anything about this. You will be unable to cast anything for 8 seconds, and the boss will not stop attacking. The boss will keep attacking the main tank during these 8 seconds. So the important thing to do about that is they have a little rotation down here, which sounds quite nice, to be honest. 3 seconds before the spray goes out, an 8 out of 8 tier 2 priest casts Greater Heal. Of course, this is for the fake renew. 2 seconds before the spray, a druid casts Regrowth, immediately followed by Rejuve. At the same time, a priest casts Renew, and another druid casts Abolish Poison. So again, Abolish Poison is very key, as Abolish Poison lasts for 8 seconds, and so does Think Incapacitate. She can web spray and then toss out a necrotic poison. If she would do this and we don't have a voltage poison up, those healing over times won't be doing anything. And she will probably kill the tank. So the key is getting as many healing over times up as possible before web spray comes up. Just before. Now, as I said again, at 30% HP she will enrage, increasing her speed and damage. Ideally what we want to do is, if people remember how Nefarian used to work with us holding back DPS before 20% and waiting for a good call. There's no specific call to be made here, but we want to hold it at 35% or so for safety. Wait for the web spray to go out, prepare all the necessary things for that of course, and as soon as that we are out of the web spray, pop your cooldowns, burn the boss down. If this would happen, if the enraged web spray happened, there's a very good chance that the tank dies. You can pop shield wall, it will probably save you as long as you have the healing over time, but if you do not have the healing over time, she will even eat through that. And then again, the adds, again, they don't do a whole lot, however, we have 8 seconds where we can't do anything. The spiders, if attacking a healer for 8 seconds, will guaranteed be able to take that healer down. So it's important that we deal with them before the web spray goes out. Which they spawn at 30 seconds, and this goes out at 40 seconds. So we have 10 seconds to deal with the adds quick. If we do this right, the boss will go down, and I have no problem seeing us doing that, just that. Only important potion you could pop on this is Greater Nature Protection Potion. This would help negate the web spray poison, but again, it's 2000 damage every 40 seconds. We could possibly skip it. On progress, I know I will be popping it, and hopefully you can as well. That is it for the Spiderwing. I think now's a good time to take any questions.
Don't really have any questions at the moment, to be honest.
Yeah, Spiderwing is kind of straightforward.
Yeah, one thing I would point out is that you talk about the first boss and fall damage. I remember it being about 20%. And we used to pop Naxxramas plugin so that you don't take any fall damage.
Yeah, like piece of them.
And mages can have light feathers, priests can use levitate, stop them taking the fall damage completely.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are a lot of ways to counter this, as well as blink at the right time and such.
Is it like up and down, or is it just you go up and fall?
You go up and you fall.
If you imagine a carpet and spikes jumping out of the carpet at you with the impale as it comes towards you, it throws you up in the air, and as you hit the floor, you then take further damage.
I have a question on the first boss.
Mm-hmm.
So when the impale comes and you say the person that's targeted stays still, why is that? Because obviously everyone else has to then move and they can't cast. Why not have the one person move out?
Quite simply because if it targets someone in the middle, you would have to move quite far out. The impale is not very large, it is very thin, so by simply creating a straight line for the impale to travel without any surprise turns, it will be a lot less surprising for all of us.
We used to do it in Rapid Lich Keeping, we used to get the person who had impale to move.
We could look into that. Yeah, raids were small in RAF, so that's a good point.
Also, as far as I remember, the spike really travels, so if you run out, then you also have a chance of putting other people in danger.
Right, any more questions?
Yeah, how big is the room on the first boss? You mentioned the 30 yards when the tank is moving around the outer ring. So if it's 30 yards, then that you have to, if I understood it correctly, you have to avoid being in 30 yards then.
Here you
How
go.
big is the room?
It is quite large, as you might be able to see from this guide that doesn't show anything apparently. So here, this is the door that we see here. So this is the little area, the bridge area. So if we pull this up on the map, it is this area. I would estimate this is probably 100 yards across or so.
Okay.
It is about enough that placed in the biosphere, this is about max cast distance, including here, the middle of it.
This is not just for panther, it's for tiger as well.
Thanks.
Any more questions before we move on to the next wing?
Oh yeah, I do have another one, sorry. On the second boss, if we were to have to mind control the worshipper, because it's on a boss fight, does it require plus hit, or it should be able to do?
No, the mobs are level 60.
Oh, okay.
Which means that you have the standard 4% mischance. If you want to equip hits, you could, but the standard strategy is rather to simply have 2 people mind control at the same time. So by having 2 people mind control, obviously your chance of failing is very low. Even if you were to equip no hit kill.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I got a question from Sil, which I completely missed pointing out. I said that the plagued gargoyle over here has an extra mechanic that is not listed, which I completely forgot to mention. When they drop low, I believe it's about 40% or 30%. 30% I'm being told. They will make an emote in the chat, something like it emits a strange sound, and if you do not kill it within the next 10 seconds, it will heal to full. That sounds scary, but 30%, it's 75%, 75,000 health. We simply need to put one of them at the skull, we need to target that, we need to kill it. It will not be an issue. Right, any more? Sounds like not. Let's move on to the next wing, which will be the plague wing. So the plague wing is in the southeast, so you'll be starting up here out of view. The trash here is rather simple. You have plague slime and you have infectious ghouls. Let me move over to the plague wing and quickly show you a picture. So this is an infectious ghoul. They do the exact same thing as the plague ghouls in the spider wing. They enrage, they frenzy, they get very angry. They also put the disease up, I believe, not listed. Basically the same thing. They hit really hard, so as it says here, don't pull aggro, because if you do pull aggro at when they have enraged, good chance they will kill you. Plague slimes are a really weird type of trash. They hit quite hard, not super hard. They can be tanked, but they do hit hard. The traditional way to kill these is to not tank them, instead to kite them. They move very slowly across the ground. They have one ability, which is that at the start of combat they will turn a color. If they turn black, they're immune to shadow. If they turn blue, they're immune to frost. If they turn green, they're immune to nature. And if they turn red, they're immune to fire. That is their one ability. So it's quite simple. You blast whatever color they are not. Next up, we have Stone Skin Gargoyles. Again, rename version of the Plagued Gargoyles. They also have a Stone Skin. They also do the Acid Volley. This is nothing special whatsoever. Do the same thing. Packs will be as large as 2. Make sure not to chain pulled up. Make sure to focus 1 down when they do start healing. Start preparing to heal, rather. We'll be making our way down these stairs. Again, lots of gargoyles. They're camouflaged, aka they're standing still and they're not targetable. Once you walk near them, they will turn into an actual mob and be hostile. So once we've cleared past this, we come up to the first boss, which is Nuff. Now, Nuff is, I would say, also rather simple, much on the same difficulty as Spiderwing. He has the main ability he has, really, and the main potential to wipe a raid is the Curse of the Plaguebringer. He curses a target, and after 9 seconds, I believe it is targets actually, it hits about up to 20 people nearby, I think. After 9 seconds, the curse will disappear. Which sounds good, right? The target will be inflicted with the Wrath of the Plaguebringer along the closest 20 allies to each of these targets. The infection has a 40-yard range. This infection is not good whatsoever. It does instant damage and then it does damage over time, and it will spread between to other people that are not infected. Basically, we do not want that to happen. So the key here is decursing. We have plenty of mages, we have plenty of druids. This should not be an issue. Just remember the main focus on this fight, decursing. Second up, he has a blink. He blinks 20 yards, I believe it's a random direction. He wipes all aggro. It's on a, much like Twins, it's not a set time where he blinks, but rather it's a rough estimate. During this time, try to be cautious of your fret, as if you have an ignite rolling or such. Getting 5000 instant fret from a really nice ignite might not go that well. For this, we are going to, position-wise, have a ranged group, have a melee group, have a tank, have the boss. I believe we're also going to have an off-tank placed in the ranged group, much like Shazra. So if he teleports into the ranged group, the off-tank can quickly pick up aggro, pull him back out. As we don't want the ranged getting Curse of the Plaguebringer, we ideally want it to be the same people so we can know who's going to get it. After blinking, he will also cripple all the targets where he blinked from, which will be the melees and the main tank, of course. This will cause a reduction of 50% movement speed, attack speed, and strength. The cripple is a magic debuff, so it is key that this comes off, as 50% strength and attack speed really has an impact on the DPS. Every 30 seconds or so, he will summon skeletons from the piles in the room, the bone piles over in these corners. They are not very scary, they have about 31,000 health. They hit people, which is why we should have off-tanks pick them up and bring them into the main boss for simply cleaving them. It's not worth changing to full AoE rotations like starting to cast a Flame Strike. Instead, let Whirlwind, Cleaves, Blade Flurry, Blast Wave, if you'd like to do that. Take care of it. Now, 90 seconds after the fight starts, he will initiate Phase 2, I guess you could call it. Phase 2, he teleports to the balcony, I believe it's over in the east here. Teleports to the balcony, making him unreachable for DPS, including ranged DPS. While on the ground, 2 waves of Plagued Champions will spawn. These are again not very difficult, they have a Mortal Strike, but they don't hit super hard. This will not kill anyone as long as they're under control. So we will pick them up, most likely we will, if this happens, kill the ads, then sit back a couple of seconds bored until he shows up once more, ready to be finished off. If somehow we do not kill him, again he has about 1.6 million health. If we somehow have not killed him at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, he will teleport again. He will then summon Plague Champions and Plague Guardians. The Plague Guardians cast Arcane Explosion, so those are actually a bit scarier, they can cause damage. Again, Are we going to see this? No, I do not believe we will ever kill this boss in over 3 minutes 20. And then, God forbid, we get another wave. He spawns 2 waves of Plagued Guardians. So the Arcane Explosion ones only. That is 3 minutes after, so that's 6 minutes and 20 seconds into the fight. Yeah, overall, I do not believe this will be a difficult fight for us to do whatsoever. Simply need off tanks to pick up the ads, 1 off tank to remain in range grip, decurse the Curse of the Plaguebringer, dispel the cripple. That's it. Other than that, we kill the boss. What comes after we've killed the boss? After we've killed the boss comes the Gauntlet, the Suppression Room, the Bug Room in AQ. This is the Nax version of that. And in fact, does that smoothly transition everyone over to my next stream? Let's go into Nax and see a little bit for ourselves, shall we?
It's your retail account?
This is retail indeed. So this is the room leading up to Plaguewing. So leading down here, we have the Noff room. So this is Noff's room. It is rather large. Again, I'm gonna tank the boss somewhere around here-ish. Over to the left. Place the casters over there, no problem. For some reason there are not any ads, and I'm quite confused why.
But they clear after you kill one of the bosses, I think.
Yeah. I cleared it in 10, so now I'm really confused. Oh well. I will not be able to show this, but I can show one thing, which is the dance room, which is the original reason I came in here anyway. In the meantime, while traveling, shall we go over what these ads in here would do? There will be plagued bats. They do not do a whole lot at all. I believe they might do a screech that does a little AoE damage, but there's very little. They respawn very quickly, so that is not very nice. There are the frenzied bats. They do about the same thing. There are the mutated grubs. Look roughly like that up there. And finally there are plague beasts. The plague beasts are the main ones to actually care about, as they do an AoE nature damage when they die. Okay, so due to this reset issue, which I apologize for, I will not be able to properly show the dance, but I can show you how this room that we are going to dance in works. So, next boss up we have Hygen. Hygen has a couple of abilities. First off, he has a mana burn aura. He will mana burn anyone standing within 20 yards of him. So the way we're going to do this is we are going to have casters stand up on this platform to start with. We're going to shoot down and heal down at the people below. He will also be using an ability called Decrepit Fever that puts a disease on everyone around him, so that will be the melee and the tank. This reduces max health by 50% and deals 500 nature damage every 3 seconds. This must be cleansed, especially on the main tank, as fast as possible. And we should have no problem with it. Just it's a disease, so we have priests and we have paladins, and it should not be an issue. Then we have what is known as the dance, of course. Now the dance can often be considered difficult and a source of a lot of wipes, but really it is quite simple. Let me pull back onto the browser. So I prepared a bunch of pictures. Here we go. Does everyone see the fancy picture?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 4 sections of the room. This is split up in 4 sections, as you can see. We have section 1, we have section 2, we have section 3, we have section 4. The dance is as simple as you move it from one of these sections to the other. Ranged are going to be standing up on the platform for the first phase. There will be no eruptions happening up there. That's what the abilities are called, eruptions. They are completely safe in phase 1. While melee are going to start over at safe spot 1. After 10 seconds, eruptions will happen in areas 2, 3, and 4. If you're in those, you will take roughly 4 to 5k nature damage. Quite nasty. You can take that damage and probably live. Should you? No, don't do that. But you are allowed to make one mistake. 10 seconds after the first eruption, a second eruption is going to happen. The safe spot then is zone number 2. Is 3. After that is 4. After that is 3. After that it's 2. After that it's 1. After that it's 2. At this point, I believe, is it 90 seconds has passed? And that is when phase 2 starts. Phase 2 will consist of the boss teleporting up, as you can see, to the platform. He will cause a poison cloud, meaning that you cannot stand there, and you don't want to stand there if you're a caster, because he will still do the mana burn. Now, when phase 1 turns into phase 2 is the only slightly tricky part of the dance. When in phase 1 you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2. When phase 2 starts, the next number is not 3, it's 1. You go back a step. This is where the real dance starts. Up until this point it was roughly every 10 seconds. At this point it's roughly every 3 seconds. Which again sounds scary, but it's not, don't worry. So you'll be starting at 1, you'll be following the exact same pattern. You go 2, you go 3, you go 4, you go 3, you go 2, you go 1, and so on. You just go back and forth. And this will not be fast enough that you can even run through back and forth. You will have to run to 2, you will stop about here, you will run to 3, you will stop right here, you will run to 4, stop a bit in, turn back, wait a little, run to the edge of 3 again, run to 2. It will probably be as simple as we put a mark up, you make sure you stay very near the mark, and you just move back and forth through the room. I don't think anyone needs to be scared of the dance here. The key is simply to remember. Keep moving when you need to, and make sure you know what number is next, which is quite simple. It's the one in the direction you're moving. 1, 2, 3, 4.
If you have a video, I think I remember that you can see it on the floor.
The line between 1 and 2 should be closer to number 2. If you see the green line that are between the 1 line and the 2 line, that is active on number 1. So it's correct on number between 3 and 4. So that's on the corner, but between number 1 and 2, it's not on the corner of the platform. So the line should be closer to number 2 line, so you have less space in number 2 than the picture is showing.
2 is the trickiest part. Don't stand too close. Again, try to aim for just standing in the middle of each of these zones. Not 4 and 1, obviously you don't need to go super far in those.
Yeah, I think you can see the mechanic on the floor, like, so you don't need to worry about the lines.
Yeah.
How much damage while in phase 2?
Same damage if you are hit. If anyone is hit, they take 4,000 to 5,000.
No, not hit. Is there like a ticking damage or?
No. Nope, there's no damage going out other than that. As long as everyone does the dance, no one will be taking any damage in this phase. As long as there's no decrepit fevers up, which can be dispelled.
You have to keep distance from the boss though. That's it.
Yeah. Don't step up on the platform. Don't do that. Bad. And even you don't want to step too close to here either. Just keep your distance around, like you see where these people are. Just around here.
I suppose you want to be quite close to the transition line. Between 1, 2, 3, 4 as you move, I'm thinking.
Yeah, again, it's not super tight. You have probably, if you start moving, I'd say you need to spend 70% of your time moving, with 30% you can actually stand still. You have time.
Yeah, it's like you run towards a wall of green shit. So you run towards the wall and then you stop.
See if we can find a quick video on it, since I couldn't show you. Here's a PTR. So let's quickly look at the thing. So here's the slow version, the 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can see they're now in safe zone 2. Now move it into 3. I hope I didn't get a video. Okay, this is the only part I have not got over, so that's fun that the video of course shows that. Let's quickly go over there. Teleport player. Periodically it teleports 3 players to the ice stalk tunnel, where you can see here. This tunnel is full of grubs, they hit quite hard, as well as ice stalks. These are basically Cafoon eye tentacles. They have very little health, about 500 I believe. And they cast Mindflay. This Mindflay will be slowing you, meaning that the grubs can actually catch up to you. The key here is not to kill things, the key is to try to get to the end. If that is by killing things, so be it. So hopefully this person, and ranged will be clear in the ice stalks. So you simply need to try to maneuver around them, clearing the ice stalks along the way. The only slightly problematic part can be if there are 3 melee that get teleported in, because at that point the ice stalks get a little more tricky as you don't have anyone to insta-clear it like this. Then you travel through the tunnel, go right back, you continue on with your fight here. I hope they do not wipe before phase 2, that would be quite disappointing. Let's see if we can speed this up a little. Here comes phase 2. So that was 1. Here comes 2. Here comes 3. There comes 4.
So that means we want to time it so that we don't start phase 2 whenever we're all on 4, right?
Phase 2 starts after a certain time. It's not health based.
Okay.
It always follows a certain pattern. Let's see if I can find the exact. Yeah. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2. And on that 2, you will teleport up and start phase 2. And that's when you need to head back to 1, always. And then you go back 1, 2, 3, 4, blah, 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 blah.
Can I quickly add something?
What was that?
Can I quickly add something?
Yeah, sure, go on.
Well, if you get teleported to the tentacle room, watch out when you are entering the boss's room again. Watch where the dance is at that moment, because a lot of players just run in trying to get some DPS on the boss, of course. But if the dance is on a specific spot where the entrance to the room is, you will die, of course.
Yeah, that's a good point. Try to go in after you've seen an eruption go off. Then you can quickly move from the tunnel over here to the east, move up onto the platform, and join back wherever.
And if I can add, once you're teleported, when you're running through the gauntlet, if you see maggots, don't panic and try to take a wider turn. They have a very small aggro range. You can get pretty close to them without pulling them.
That's true. And the last thing to add, of course, is that during the phase 2, the real dance phase, the tunnel is not a safe spot. It has a poison cloud that does about 4,000 damage per 30 seconds. So you're basically taking the eruption while standing in there. So you do not want to be there when phase 2 starts. It will not teleport you at just before the phase 2 starts for a guaranteed death, of course, but don't linger in there. You need to be fast. Following this, it's quite simple. Once he's done the dance, don't know exactly how long this is, but probably around, I believe, 45 seconds perhaps. He will go back to phase 1, and the new save spot will be 1, and then it's 2, and then it's 3, then it's 4, and you repeat that over again. If you don't kill him at that point, once he's done the rotation again, he'll go back to phase 2. The fight continues like that. So it's all about simply moving back and forth, and just making sure you're standing in the right back and forth. Finally, there is no trash to Lofeb. It's quite simple. You go up the ice dog tunnel. I believe the ice dogs and the grubs despawn. You move across, and you get Lofeb. What does Lofeb do? He is quite, in a way, complicated, in a way not. He is complicated, especially for healers. His main thing is that he has an ability called Corrupted Mind, which everyone will get that debuff. And what it will do is, when you cast a heal, all of your healing spells will go on a 1-minute cooldown. You cannot cast any more healing spells for 1 minute. This includes cleanse, this includes disease, this includes remove poison. Don't cast those, it's a waste of a heal. So for obvious reasons, you want to make these heals the biggest ones as possible. You don't want to simply toss out a flash heal on someone who needs a little bit of heal. Now, what else does he do? Of course, he'll be hitting the main tank, making the main tank take damage. This will need to be healed. But ideally, you want to set up a healing rotation. So you want to have, say, Brielle heal, and then you want to have, I don't know, Ultravirus heal, and then you want to have Rich heal, and then follow that rotation through, and hopefully at the end of rotation, 1 minute has passed, and then we can simply rotate the rotation again. Other abilities he does. Poison Aura. It has a 5-yard range, so it will be affecting everyone in melee. He will do 196 nature damage every 6 seconds for 12 seconds. After those 12 seconds expire, he will be applying it again. It does not stack. He will simply be keeping this up. 196 nature damage every 6 seconds. It's not a lot. We will most likely have Judgment of Light up on the boss. This alone will most likely cover damage. If not, melee, you probably have Crusader on your weapons. And if you're a warrior, you have Bloodthirst. Simply, you will not be taking any damage. Until the fun part. Inevitable Doom. He casts this 2 minutes into the fight. Everyone will get a debuff called Inevitable Doom. 10 seconds later, this debuff will expire, and it will do 2,550 shadow damage. He will then start casting Inevitable Doom every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, we will be taking 2,550 shadow damage, all of us. It cannot be dispelled, it cannot be cleansed, it cannot be decursed, and you cannot resist this damage. So Shadow Rest gear is not a thing here. So how do we deal with this? Luckily enough, this will also show on DBM. DBM will have exact countdowns on when you should use your consumable. There is a consumables list available. It's as simple as you pre-pot a greater shadow protection potion. This will cover the first shadow damage that comes in. At 210, you will pop another greater shadow protection potion. At 240, you do nothing, as your previous greater shadow protection potion will be covering that damage. At 310, you bandage. At 340, use a health stone, or if you have it, Whipper Root Tuber, comes from Fellwood. At 410, you pop another greater Shadow Protection Potion and use Bandage again. At 440, you do nothing. 510, you use Bandage again. At 525, now you might notice it says 525 and not 540. After 510, he will start casting it every 15 seconds. Meaning that is kind of a soft enrage, in that he will start doing this more often and you cannot out-heal it, out-consumables it anymore. He has 6 million health, which sounds pretty scary. So how do we bring this down? He has, well, if you want to call it an ability, this fight has a mechanic called Fungal Bloom. It will spawn a spore, looks like this, at one of 6 points in the room. This does not have a map of it. It will spawn the bloom, the little spore, that will move towards the boss. It will have very little health, and when killed it applies a debuff, which is not a debuff, it's a buff. But it's a debuff for debuff versus buff purposes. What this debuff does is it gives you 50% crit hit chance. It gives you 60% spell crit hit chance. It makes your spells and abilities cost no threat, and it will last for 90 seconds. A spore will be spawning every 12 seconds, and every time you kill it, the 5 closest people will get this buff. So for this boss we're going to have to make groups. Could use group numbers as long as they are optimal. And simply say, okay, group 1, it's your turn. They run over, 5 of them. They get the spore. Group 2, go. Group 3, go. So on. 90 seconds is enough for 7 groups to have it up all the time. 5 people will not have it for the entire duration, which will, sadly for healers, probably be healers, as DPS is a lot more valuable. And of course the main tank will not be picking this up, as spells and abilities cost no threat is not great for them. The tank got to be wearing full mitt. A Diamond Flask set is not a bad idea, as it makes it a lot easier to get used to the Corrupted Mind debuff. For Fungal Bloom, something like Fire Mages, really good. Fury Warriors, also really good. After that, it's basically everyone. Every DPS will in the end have this, so it's just about prioritizing which ones get the first ones. Mages getting the first ones obviously means they can stack a very big ignite, pop all their cooldowns, stack the biggest ignites from all 5 tossing Pyroblast or something like that, and then simply spam Scorch or Fireball, and all of those will be critting, and they keep this ignite rolling for the rest of the fight, and they will never have any threat issues from it. That is the fight. It's quite simple, but it's all down to execution. Healers need to get used to the Corrupted Mind. DPS need to get the spores down. Tank need to make sure to take as little damage as possible. And everyone need to be following the consumables list. Again, DBM will be popping up saying, once the inevitable doom goes out, it'll pop up saying greater shadow protection, use it. At 240 it won't do anything, 310 will say use bandit. So as long as you can follow the instructions and have these consumables. Realistically, I think we're going to be using probably land around 410 for a kill, maybe. So we're going to be needing 3 shadow protection potions per real attempt. I do not see a reason why this fight would be difficult, as long as we get used to the healing debuff. This will be easy peasy as long as everyone follows instructions. That's it for the Plague Wing.
Can I add one more thing, Alex?
Sure.
It was just on the Corrupted Mind thing. It only applies to healing, so healers, rather than like standing about doing nothing for 60 seconds, you can DPS like hell, because it's a big DPS route, right?
Indeed. Feel free to toss smites. Feel free to toss your fraffs.
Also, if I may add, I do realize that Weak Aura is a recommended add-on, but I would say it is highly recommended for this fight because there's a Weak Aura string that will make dividing Hellstones extremely easy for Warlocks and save us a lot of time. that I will be posting after this session.
Any questions on this wing?
So I'm guessing we will only be healing the tank.
Yes, that is the only person you should be healing. No one else should be taking damage, and if they take damage, they should be able to manage it using this consumables list. Is that it? Sounds like that might be it. In that case, let's move on to who? Did I hear someone's mic play it up?
I was just going to say, for treasure, your priest tier 2 8-piece set will be really, really good here if you've got it. And if you don't have it, we should make it a priority to get the people's tier 2 set finished. Like just for this one fight, it'd be really, really good.
And Whipper Tubber don't share cooldown with major health pots, so that's
They
why
share
they are.
cooldowns with health stone stuff.
Yeah, but not with health pots.
Health pots share cooldown with greater shadow protection potions, so you should not be using health potions on this fight.
Does this work?
Does what work?
So I've been asking questions, but my microphone hasn't been working because of a system update.
You're working now.
And I have a question.
Go on, Tandem.
What does GSPP mean by the alternative consumes?
Greater shadow protection potion. Yeah, it says that you could replace it with major healing potion. The difference is about 1,500 damage taken. So if you do kill it within probably the 410 mark, we could consider doing that. But it's going to be more damage taken, and it is not something that I would recommend us trying on progress. Burial, I think you disappeared again.
Sorry, I was right. There you go. My comment was that at the moment we only have one priest with full tier 2.
Right.
So it needs to be a sort of priority. But I've got a little check sheet of who's got what, so we're going to get that sorted.
Don't you have 3 priests with full tier 2?
I've only got 1.
I got this belt the other day. Wasn't that his last piece?
If that was his last piece, then we have 2.
Shall we move on to the next wing, shall we?
Alex, if you could just go back to Lower Fed for 1 second, I want to read the tooltip, if that's cool.
What tooltip?
Oh yeah, Warlocks, obviously you can time your Shadow Word with Inevitable Doom. It will probably absorb 20% of the damage, so keep that in mind.
That's a good point. Oh yeah, and one final thing is every 30 seconds he decurses himself, so Warlocks, make sure you're reapplying your curses every 30 seconds. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Over to the Abomination Wing.
Frogger.
The Abomination Wing has a lot of abominations. Shocker. Let's move over to the simpler one. So the path is, we're going to be going northwest. Through here, through this room, through a big circular room, down here into the patchwork room. And what will we be finding along the way? Let's look at the short description of them. We're finding patchwork golems. These have an AoE stun, they have a cleave, and they do AoE damage with a disease cloud. It's recommended that melee tanks pop your 3 action potions on these, as the stun is the same stun as the Death Talon Worm Guards are putting up in Blackman Lair. So in order to maintain threat and pull them into position, ideally against a wall, you can do that. You don't want to be stacking these, as it is an AoE stun. It also does damage, and they do cleave. So keep them separated, bring one down at a time, should not be an issue. Bile Retchers, Retch Bile in fact, they have a frontal AoE nature debuff that applies a damage over time. So you want to tank these against where people are not, into a wall, the other direction, somewhere. You don't want to face the raid with this. They also have an AoE knock-up. This has a 20-yard range, so casters and healers try to keep your distance. And it's a knock-up. It knocks you quite high into the air. I believe you might take a small amount of fall damage, but melee mostly have mechanics counter fall damage. So this should not be an issue. Sewage slimes. These are not very special at all. There's a lot of them. They keep respawning until Grobble is dead. Stack them up. Kill them. AoE big. Then you have combinations of the Bile Retchers as well as the Patchwork Golems. You kill the Bile Retchers first, then the Patchwork Golems. Nothing fancy about that. Sludge Belchers, they do another poison spit. This one does a minus nature resist debuff on the tank. I don't think a lot of tanks are wearing nature resist, so I don't think this should be something to worry about. Then there's the Embalming Slime. While they look the same as the Sewage Slime, they do not work the same way as the Sewage Slime. The Embalming Slime do a lot of damage in melee range. You don't want to be standing near these things. Each slime will pick one person for a fixate, a perma-aggro. So that person, ideally you want to stack very tightly with everyone else, so they stack very tightly, and you AoE them from a safe distance. But these will also keep respawning, so we want to keep moving through the area. Right, now we are in the Mad Scientist room. So there's a bunch of Mad Scientists as well as their companions along this route here. The boss is over here, along here, and it might seem like we can simply pull this. Again, we cannot pull this. If we pull this, all of this will also pull. We need to clear all the trash before we do this. There's no safe way to walk across this little gap here. You need to jump, and if you don't make it, you will get a debuff that reduces your stats to 10%, quite nasty, as well as do some damage to you. So it's not a very dangerous mechanic, but people might laugh at you if you fail to jump. This room features living monstrosities, which look like this. Weird undead hunchback creatures. They hit for 1,000. Hardest hitting out of these mobs. They have an AoE Fear, which does not have a target limit if I remember correctly. It's like the warrior intimidating shout without target limit. They have a Chain Lightning. It is not like a scary Chain Lightning like Cthulhu where it increases in size. It's a normal Chain Lightning. It gets weaker as it goes. And then finally they have a Lightning Totem. This totem does a lot of damage. It needs to die as soon as possible. Once it drops it, kill it. Mad Scientists will be casting the heal on the monstrosity. We want to heal them. They can be stunned. No, we don't want to heal them. We want to kick them. And they can be stunned. So simply make sure they do not cast. And the surgical assistants will be casting Mind Flay, which chains up to 3 people with Mind Flay. It hurts. Can be stunned, can be interrupted. Grenades interrupt them. So if you're an engineer, feel free to toss some grenades on the surgical assistants. In general, you AoE them up. Make sure you identify the totem fast to drop, and you just burn it all down. Holy Water, very useful here if you have Stratum Holy Water, as all of these are undead. There are quite a couple of these packs. How many arrows I'm pointing at? 5. I believe there are 5 packs of these. It's not very nice. But if you like AoE, you will like these packs. Then comes the first boss. Patchwork. Quite famous, quite infamous. He hits very hard to start with, and he hits very often. Tanks will need a lot of healing for this. He does not have a lot of mechanics, not at all. He has an enrage at 5%, which is about 200,000 of his health. He hits very hard doing that, but you can pop Shield Wall, you can pop Last Stand. Even if tanks start dropping at this point, 5% health, as long as everything has been going smoothly, the boss will die. And after 7 minutes, he goes Berserk. That is more problematic. If that happens, we will die. He will kill all of us very quickly. But I believe 7 minutes to do. I believe he has 4.5 million, 5 million health. While a lot and a very long fight, should not be a problem. Now comes the only real mechanic he has. Hateful Strike. As you might have read, a hit that does 22,100 to 29,900 physical damage. That is not a typo, that is the actual damage it does. Keep in mind that is mitigated by armor. It hits the top 4 in the aggro table that are in melee range, and it hits the guy with the most health. So the way it also does not hit the main tank, which is an important note. You don't need to worry about the main tank getting insta hit by that, as well as a melee hit and dying. So the ideal way that I see us doing this is getting a very tanky feral druid, as they have a lot of health and they have a lot of armor. Feral druid's real weakness is getting crushed, and abilities cannot crush, so this will be perfect for them. You need to make sure that people don't go above the tanks in threat, as if you do, you might be the next one to get hit by Hateful Strike. And then we simply need to keep everyone up. Keep the main tank up, keep the soakers up. That is it. Those are the only people who will be taking damage. We want to have them wearing obviously as much MIT as possible, as much mitigation gear as possible. Shield will be very much mandatory if you're a warrior soaking it. Stone shield potions. Any damage reduction you can get. Most likely this will be hitting for about 7,000. 6,000, 7,000 if you pop those things. Which is still a lot, considering he does this ability, I forgot to mention, every 1.2 seconds. We're going to need a lot of single target heals. But that's the only thing. There's no AoE heal, there's only single target heals. On the tanks, keep them up at all costs. The fight is going to be quite long, so again, mana needs to be conserved.
Can that be dodged and everything?
It can be dodged, it can be parried. So that is the grace.
Okay.
The armor is the main thing you want to build, however, as obviously if you rely on dodge and then you don't dodge and then you die, that's not ideal. Again, I think it might take a little getting used to this high damage on tanks, but I do not believe this will be a problem for us. As long as we just fixate all the healing, you get inspiration, you get stone shield potion, tanks will bring a shield, we'll be able to keep people up.
What is mitigated through AC?
I'm not sure what exactly they meant. If they play role-playing games, they meant armor class. Armor is what they meant.
Okay.
It's the physical damage, so armor. Which will be mitigating, like I said. A lot of us will be taking probably 7,000, let's say. So it'll be dropping. People will be dropping really low every time they get this. But as long as they don't get one shot, people will generally not die from this. As hopefully we will have multiple people ready to soak. These people will get topped. So if one person takes a bunch of damage, and the Hateful Strike is ready to go out before that person is topped, it will go on the next super tanky person. And hopefully by the next time the attack is about to go out, the first one has been topped again. It'll be something to get used to.
Isn't there a mechanic where you can lower your health actually?
Yeah.
Yes, you can stand in the slime. I do not see the purpose of this. You can lower your health, but it only hits the top 4 in aggro table.
Yeah, but they said it drops, and the person in the top 4 with the highest HP will get the swing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we used
that
to do
means-
it in
So that means if everyone is around 6-7k, for example, then the DPS need to stand in the slime, so the HP is a little bit lower, and it doesn't matter if you're lower in HP and you are in top of the thread, you don't get the swing because your HP is low.
Yeah, we used to take a bath in Wrath of the Lich King.
Yeah, you
Everyone
can.
would run into it.
You can do that. Personally, I do not see the value, as you will probably, by lowering your health, either you make an off tank that is too low, soak it, and they die instead.
No, but
Which-
the DPS need to do it.
Yes, the DPS do it, but the only time you would be getting hit is if all the off tanks that are in the top 4 have lower health than you. And if you're at that point, someone is dying, whether it's an off tank or it's you. If you take it, you will die. If the off tank takes 1, while their health would be lower than your max health, they're probably dead as well.
So what does the end get the guy with the most HP from those mean?
What was that?
In the
Oh,
comments.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Patrick looks at the top 4 fret, looks away from the main tank, who will obviously be 1. He looks at the top 4 fret that are in melee range, and he hits the guy with the most HP. Current HP. This means if you have 10,000 max HP, but you're a 5,000, and there's a guy with 7,000 max HP who's topped, it will hit the 7,000. It will hit whoever has the most HP at the time he wants to cast it.
So you don't want to heal anybody else but the tanks?
Yep.
One small detail is that Hateful Strike also gives fret to whoever it hits, which will help with the fret generation for the mid tanks. Again, you can stand in the slime. Make sure that you do not stand in the slime during the fight, as again it puts a debuff on you that reduces your stats to 10% of what they're supposed to be. You will do no damage whatsoever. So if you want to use that strategy, go ahead. I do not believe it contributes any value, but do not do it in combat. But yeah, you don't need to heal anyone who's not in the tanks. No one will be taking any damage whatsoever outside from a Hateful Strike. And if a DPS takes Hateful Strike, they will die. There is no way around that. Any more additions?
Warlocks will need to be healed.
That is true.
Yeah, but then you can do the easy job. Then take for that fight, put your as Warlock, put your Bloodfang set. That's no stamina on it. So you lose a lot of HP. So you're around under the 4k HP. So you never get problems with the threat.
Yeah, but we just need to be healed as...
Warlock can't stand in melee, are they?
Yeah, it only hits
No.
people in melee, so Warlock...
He's talking about life tap, I think.
Yeah, I get that, but you don't necessarily have to reduce your stamina to...
No.
Because you're not standing next to the boss, you're standing far away.
It says on melee range, and the casters are not on melee range.
Exactly. Any more? Let's move on to Grobulos in that case. Alright, let's see, where's the map of the room? Here's the map of the room. So, Grobulos is, in a lot of ways, not a lot of ways, he is a little similar to Benoxis from CG in that he drops a poison cloud and you don't want to be standing in the poison cloud. This is kind of the main thing. The main tank is going to be taking the boss on quite a journey. Some sort of journey around the room. In this guide, they think that counterclockwise around here. So you have the main tank stand in front, you have DPS stand behind, until he drops his ability, Poison Cloud. Obviously you do not want to stand in the Poison Cloud, so the main tank will be kiting it backwards a little, DPS will be following, and then you keep hitting it until it drops another Poison Cloud. You want to drop these as tightly as possible, because they do not despawn until the boss is dead, meaning that you can eventually run out of room, but I think the boss will run out of HP before that happens. He has a couple of more abilities. He has an ability called Slime Spray, which is a cone ability. It does 3,600 to 4,800 nature damage. And it spawns a Fallout Slime for each member hit by this ability. So it will always be hitting the main tank, and ideally, it should be hitting no one else. So at that point it will spawn one slime. It does a bit of damage in AoE. It does not have a lot of health. You can simply cleave it down. Melee just are whirlwinding, cleaving, and it will be dropping. Other than that, he has an ability called Mutating Injection, which you get a debuff, which is a disease. Does 4,500 physical damage AoE after 10 seconds, or a lower damage AoE when cleansed. And then you create a poison cloud with the same effect as Grobulus himself. So, the way I envision us doing this is quite simply melee, if they would get it, moves back a step to the poison cloud that they just passed, a little off to the side, where they get dispelled and put a poison cloud out of the way. If casters get it, much the same, they move to the back of where we start, get dispelled, drop one there. It is very important that the disease does not get cleansed as soon as it pops up. Don't see a disease and be like, oh, I want to dispel this, don't do that. If you do that, and they're in the caster group, people are going to take a lot of damage. If they're in the melee group, obviously, same thing there. Very important not to do that. Then he has an AoE dot that deals 4,580 damage over 3 seconds. It's activated when he's not in melee, so tank needs to make sure that he always has the boss with him. And then he goes berserk after 12 minutes. He has 2,165,000 million HP. So it will not take us 12 minutes to kill this boss, I promise you. That is really the key points. The casters and the healers stay in the middle. Make sure you never stand in front of the boss. Melee stand behind the boss. If you get Mutating Injection, move back. You can even stand in a poison cloud for just a second. It does about, I think it takes for 2,000 or so you should be able to take 2, maybe 3 ticks. If you get dispelled as fast as possible, that is.
There was something about the ramp as well, wasn't there? When you first pull them, I think they drop it on the ramp.
Yes, I believe you pull him down the ramp at the start, and that's where you start going around, usually. I believe this will be one of the easier bosses of this wing. If you get past Patchwork, this will not be an issue. Any questions on this boss? No.
It's taking it all in.
It's quite simple, boss, really. Cleave the ad, don't stand in the poison. Melee tank or main tank will be pulling it ahead. And when you get Mutating Injection, make sure you know where to run, which is to the poison. And then take the boss down. Next up, we got Gloof. In fact, there's not a lot of trash here, so apologies for skipping back. Yeah, you have a couple of trash of stitched spewers. These have very little. Oh yeah, and I completely skipped over the best part of the raid, isn't it? Yes, so constantly out of this little part of the sewer will spawn little slimes. They cannot be targeted. If the slime touch you, you're in trouble. They will be moving across the road, much like the game Frogger. You just need to make sure that you are not running into one and there's not one coming from your left. Cross the road, you'll be perfectly safe.
That sounds like another boss.
That's a boss and a half.
That part in Nax.
So yeah, if someone dies to this, we will laugh at you. That is mandatory.
Yeah, we used to have minus DKP if you died to them.
So it goes from right to left side?
Left to right, I believe. Left to right. So we'll be killing Patchwork just behind the camera here.
Okay.
And it goes left to right.
And what's on that other side? Can you jump on the other side of the green? To the left, yeah?
Over here, left. That is this platform over here. So this is where we killed trash up until then.
Oh, okay.
So the goal is to move up here, which means you cannot skip it like that. What you can do, if you're a coward and you have a healer on, is run through the slime. You won't die that way, but that is still rather embarrassing that you wouldn't attempt Frogger, come on.
I'm getting speed potion.
Sounds good. Stitch
People use
Spewers.
to bubble it and all.
Stitch Spewers. They have an AoE poison volley. They have an AoE knockup. They can be stunned, and to dodge the AoE knockup, as they can send you quite high and the roof is quite high, you can stand underneath an archway, have a pipe above you. Yeah, they're not very complicated. Clean them up, take them down, easy peasy. This does not have a lot of trash or such. In fact, they even note down, hey, run on the pipe, don't hop down, that's silly. And one important note on this is, where is it on the next part? Yeah, I believe when running in to Glyph's room, oh yeah, you come from down here, there's a hole in the pipe. Don't jump down the hole, because then we're gonna have to summon you, or you're gonna have to run for like a minute. So don't fall down the hole. Watch where you're running. It's quite simple. So, Glyph. In a lot of ways, it's like Magma Dart Plus.
That hole, I bet.
Kind of tricky part, but this is not for most people, this is just for tanks. Immortal Wound. Stacking debuff that reduces healing by 10% each stack. Lasts 15 seconds and the boss applies it roughly every 5 to 10 seconds. It's the same as Fancris and it's the same as Kuranax in 8020. What is not the same is that this boss is not tauntable, meaning that in order to break your stacks you have to have someone overtake your aggro. So the main tank and the tank who's looking to overtake have to be roughly the same on threat in order to be comfortable being able to swap at any time. He can enrage every 10 seconds, increasing attack speed and damage. Obviously this can be tranked, so we shoot a trank at him and we're good. He casts an AoE Fear, much like Magma Dart, 20-yard range, so range keep your distance, casters and healers keep your distance, all is good with that. Now, the main difficulty of this boss, aside from the tank swap, are the adds. So in pink circled around these green areas here, these are grates. Every about 5 to 7 seconds, a zombie chow will spawn. These will target whatever. They don't have any specific targets, so they will target, someone who heals probably gets healing crit. They'll run to them, they'll start hitting them, and since there will be quite a lot of them, will be overrun in the end. They have a lot of health, so it is not feasible to kill them, especially as they keep spawning every 5 to 7 seconds. Instead, the plan is to kite them. There's a lot of different ways to kite them. The easiest and most 2005 way to do this is to have frost mages do this. Obviously, having our fire mages respec frost every time we do Glyph, and then respec back to fire when they come up to Saffron and kill Zod, is not very feasible for their pockets. But there are other ways. Mages are kind of the best at doing this, as they can keep good AoE threat with Arcane Explosion. You can use Blast Wave as well since they're fire, and such. But the zombie chows move at normal speed. And if the zombie chows hit you, they will apply a disease that increases your damage taken by 100. In the end, you will be kiting probably around 15 of them at least. Meaning that if these are stacked up and they hit you, you are probably dead. It is key that they will never hit you as a mage. So as I said, they move at normal speed, so you need to find some way to work around this. You can slow them, but if you're not Frost, you won't be able to do this alone. Horde have it easy. They can drop Earthbind Totem. The other ways to do this, we have a lot of options. We can have hunters. We do have 3 hunters planned, I believe. We can have hunters on each of these grates drop freezing traps. They last for 30 seconds. They have 30-second cooldown. As long as they can keep them up, everything should be slowed. As long as they may just kite them around the grate. We could also have warriors. use Piercing Howl, which is a shout that decreases attack and movement speed by 50% for 10 seconds. This will most likely require a respec, or 2 or 3, comfortably, as most warriors do not play with Piercing Howl. There's another strategy which I will quickly go over, which is you can have healers kite these as well, through hotting people up, and then they will get all the healing aggro, and then they kite around. Again, you need slows. Slows is the important part here.
Could you not just use one of those Zanzil potions?
You could use Zanza potions, but it is still rather uncomfortable if they're moving at normal speed, because you want to keep them. You want to keep moving around the grate, as they will keep moving. So you cannot run in a straight line like out here and then back, and then like move in a large line. You need to keep moving in this area. If, as well, a zombie would get close to Glyph, he will eat the zombie and restore 5% of its health. This is not very good, so we're going to avoid this. Last mechanic that I've not brought up, as it kind of required going over the other ones. Decimate. He casts this roughly every 105 seconds. He will reduce the HP of everyone other than himself in the room to 5%, including the zombies. He'll reduce everything to 5% HP. As he does not have any AoE damage, it's not scary for the ranged or the melee, as they will not be taking damage. Tanks obviously need some big heals at that time. And at that point, he does a lot of damage to the zombie chows, and the zombie chows get mad and get a lot of aggro on the boss, and they will start walking towards him. Or rather, if they're not slowed, running towards him. At this point, we want to kill them. Simple AoE, Blast Wave, Flame Strike, everything you can do. Sapper charges can be used. Important note on sapper charges is that you're at 5% HP. Make sure that you have HP to use sapper charges before you blow yourself up. If you manage to do that, that's the entire fight. It restarts from there. Everyone gets healed up, hopefully. The mages get another go. Whoever's slowing keeps it going. And the tanks keep swapping until the boss dies. It sounds simple, but the key is getting the kiting down. The kiters are what makes this fight. And he does Berserk after 3 decimates, which is, again, that is 5 minutes and 15 seconds, which is plenty of time to kill him. He has, does it say on the sheet? I believe he has, 2 million health, approximately. And that's the fight. Any questions for this one?
Not from me.
Yeah, the key is just getting. Oh yeah, here's the warning. Don't fall here when getting inside in the pipe. When you're running in the pipe, don't fall down the hole. It's silly. Yeah, and we'll be coming down from the southeast and pulling the tank over here to the northwest in order to make as much space for the zombies as possible. Yeah, the key is just kiting. We might see a couple of failures from that. No problem. That is the only difficulty of this fight, the kite. Everyone else will be having an easy job of healing, tanking. Tank swap's not so easy, but we'll get through it. And killing the boss. Again, 105 seconds. I doubt we will see 2 of them. 2 of them would happen at 3:30, and it's 2 million health. I think we can do that. Moving on to Thaddeus. Now Thaddeus starts off with us not fighting Thaddeus at all. We'll be fighting Fugan, and we'll be fighting Stalag. Here's a map of us coming in at the southeast. Over here is one of them, I can't remember which is which. Let's say Fugan is over here, let's say Stalag is over here. Stalag is on the left, Stalag is the one on the left, Fugan is over here, there we go. Usually recommended is sending your melee over here, your ranged over to Stalag. We'll go over why that is. Fugan has this is a shared ability, they both have this ability. They have an AoE damage ability that does 1500 damage in melee range. Doesn't stun, but it does a pushback. It's not very far, it's just a bit. And Fugen has an ability called Power Surge. This increases attack speed by 200%, lasts for 8 seconds, and he breaks the normal rules for crushing blows. Everything that isn't dodged, parried, or blocked will be crushing. That's a lot more damage. Stalag also has the worst up. He also has a mana drain. He drains mana on an area that covers 90% of the platform. Ranged classes can outrange if they're positioned correctly, which is why we'll be having ranged over in the far back corner over here. Now they have an ability called Tank Swap. Now what that does is they both cast it at the same time. They cast it on their main target, probably the tanks, and it will pick up the tank and toss them over to the other side. Same with the one on the other side. So essentially, it's a tank swap. The tanks swap places. They can both be taunted, which is very convenient, because otherwise this would be a lot more difficult. And they are nice enough to usually wait with hitting people until their tank shows up. So as long as you're ready for the tank swap, and you target your new target and you spam the taunt, no one else will be hitting it. No problem. If the bosses get pulled away from their lightning rod in the middle of this area here, they will start to chain lightning the raid. This will kill everyone very quickly. We want to make sure they stay where they are. Right, so tanks need to make sure that they're standing roughly here, but not too close, as they do have a knockback and you don't want to get knocked down into the sludge. Melee obviously stand behind, and rage kill this one. Now, one key thing here is that much like the tiger boss in CG, these bosses need to die at the same time. They need to die within, I believe, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And if they don't, they both respawn at full health. Once we do kill them, the real fight starts with Thaddeus. Let me go back to the map. So we'll be over here, over here, over here, over here. Once they're dead, you move up, you get across here, onto this platform in the northwest.
So you have to jump.
You do have to jump. Ideally you don't fall into the sludge, but you can make the jump. I believe most people will be able to. He is rather short in his mechanics, but they are very impactful mechanics. We'll go over the simple ones first. He has a chain lightning. It chains to people. Does not amplify damage again. It does a bit of damage to everyone. No way around it really. And if no one's in melee range, he will kill everyone, essentially. Now, the mechanic of this fight. Every 30 seconds, and I believe a little faster at the start, I think something like 15 seconds you have to get in position, he will give everyone in the raid either a positive or a negative charge. He will give an even distribution of charge, so he'll be putting out 20 positives and 20 negatives. They will appear as a debuff in your debuff slots. And what these will do is, every 5 seconds, charged players will deal 2000 nature damage to all opposite charged players within 10 yards. So if you are standing, if you're a minus charge standing with the plus charges, first of all you're going to do 2000 damage to all the plus charges, and secondly all the plus charges are going to do 2000 damage to you. You will die. But there's one positive to this debuff. For every same charged player within 10 yards, you get a 10% damage bonus. So if stacked correctly, everyone will get a 190% damage bonus. We'll be doing essentially triple damage. We have 5 minutes to kill this boss. He has about 6 million health, which sounds scary, but we do have triple damage, so in reality it's 2 million health. And how this is going to work is we are going to designate one side as plus, probably going to be the right side rather than this picture. So the right side, the northeast side, is going to be plus, let's say. The southwest side is going to be a minus. If you get a minus charge, you will go to the minus side. If you get plus charge, you will go to the plus side. The tank will obviously also be getting a charge, so the boss will be facing one of these sides. Sad for the melee over there, they will be getting parried and won't be able to backstab. And the key, of course, is making sure that you are on the right side, because if you're a plus on the minus side, you will die very quickly, and you will also be causing a lot of unnecessary damage. This is also why the chain lightning, obviously there's nothing to worry about here. It hits approximately 8 players in 5 yards range. There's nothing we can do about it. We cannot spread or anything like such. So every 30 seconds he's going to be changing the polarities. Not just change, not as in every time you're minus you will get plus, every time you're plus you will get minus. Sometimes it will stay the same. So the key, and I believe DBM will shout at you very loudly about this, is that when your polarity changes, you need to swap to the other side fast, fast, fast. There are 2 methods to the swap. Either you quickly run through the middle of the boss, or you play it safe, which I think we're going to play it safe, which is you simply move clockwise along the boss. So if you're a plus player over here, and you get a minus, you will be going to the left, you'll be circling around, you'll be arriving at the minus side. Same with any minus players, they will be circling around. You have 5 seconds to move before you will start taking and dealing damage to people. So as long as everyone is paying attention to that, this should not be an issue. But again, if we theoretically have 3 minus players over the plus side, every plus player will be taking 6,000 nature damage. This will most likely kill everyone. So the only thing to worry about, here is just make sure to know your polarity, make sure where that polarity is supposed to be. That's it. And that would be it for the Abomination Wing. Any questions for this boss? Fairly straightforward?
Yeah, it's the polarity switch that people just need to learn to make sure to go clockwise.
Exactly.
Like that used to wipe the raids in Wrath of the Lich King, because someone would always forget to run late, and then they'd cross under the charge.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't run for the loot after the fight.
Yes, good point. The polarities will stay after the boss dies. So don't just run up to the boss, and also, forgot to mention, after we kill the last boss in each of these wings, a teleporter will open up, allowing us to teleport back to the start. The teleporter will spawn roughly in the middle. If everyone runs for the teleporter, things will not end well, because 19 players will be stacked on 19 others and everyone will instantly die. So take 30 seconds after the boss is dead, take a drink, have a breathe, and celebrate the victory by keeping your distance. Once the debuff's off, go ahead, loot, teleport, done. Woo, big win.
All of 2020's been training you for this moment.
Oof. Shall we move on to the last wing? The military wing. Now, this document is not fully complete, sadly, so you will not have trash pictures. But I can move over to this document. Trash, there's a lot of it, and it's not very fun. So it'll be quite a sludge to grab for. First of all, we have Death Knights and Risen Death Knights in the first couple of packs. The Death Knights are going to be throwing out intimidating shouts, an AoE that fears 5 players. They'll be throwing out Veil of Darkness, which is not a Veil of Shadow, it's a Veil of Darkness. It reduces healing by 100%. again, it can be decursed and needs to be done immediately because no healing will be given for. You can kill these before. We'll see this very often. Raise dead, summons death chill servants. These servants do quite literally nothing. I think there's 4 of them or so. So the key is not letting them hit your healers for super long. Again, they don't hit very hard, so no problem. As for Risen Death Knights, their only mechanic is that they're lava annihilators. They have random threat drops. That is it. So tanks keep those under control as well as you can, and you take down the Death Knight as fast as you can. Oh yeah, and Fear Ward tanks, and if you have a lot of people in the melee as well. A couple of packs of these, then we got Death Knight Captains. These hit very hard, about 2,000 or so, and they do a whirlwind. This is quite a deadly whirlwind because unlike Sartura or something like that, it does damage and it knocks you down, meaning that you can and will, if you take the first hit, get chained. There is no escaping it once you've taken the first damage. You have about 3 seconds when they start spinning to get out. If you do not get out, again, knocked down, you're gonna take damage, hope your healers have got you. They can be disarmed, and they can be disarmed while they're spinning as well. That will make the whirlwind do a lot less damage, so disarming, very important on these. Then we got Shade of Naxxramas as well as 2 Necro Knights. Shade of Naxxramas spawns Spooky Ghost Portals and casts Shadowbolt Volleys. The Necro Knights will be doing an Arcane Explosion every 3 seconds for about 1,000, cannot be interrupted, and it will blink, randomly blink onto a raid member. We stack these up, we cleave the Necro Knights, we burn them down fast as can be. The Shade of Naxxramas are bad, but the Necro Knights are worse. This pack also patrols, so we need to keep our eyes open while we're fighting the other packs. And as for the Spooky Ghost Portal, if you've been to ZG, you know when you kill a Witch Doctor, it turns into a ghost and it comes towards you. It's the same thing. They're not targetable mobs, they will come towards you, and if they touch you, they will deal damage. So don't touch the ghost. Then we have Dark and Death Touched Warriors. They have random threat drops, there's nothing special. There's also Death Knight Captains and Death Knights in here. So the Death Knight Captain, you pull it out as it has the whirlwind. You kill the Death Knight, do not have any risen ads. And then you kill the Dark Death Touched Warriors, and then you deal with the Death Knight Captain. Next up we got Skeletal Smiths. They have Sunder Armor. It reduces armor. They have Disarm, which they cast on their main targets. And they have a Thunderclap, which slows attacks and movement speed. You stack this up, you AO him down. Tanks can use disarm immunity. I don't believe we will have an issue with that. Again, 2 Death Knights, 2 Captains. See above for notes on those. They rise things. Captains, they spin. So you kite the Captains away, you AoE the Death Knights then. Cleave, rather, not AoE. Then you have Death Knight Cavaliers, as well as Death Lords. These are a bit worse. They have a cleave that hits highest threat and the closest 3 targets to that. They cast Death Coil, which is much like the Warlock ability of 900 shadow damage at a Horrify for 30 seconds. And they have an Aura of Agony, which they cast every 8 seconds with a 30-yard range that does stacking shadow damage. I believe it's a magic ability, so I believe it can be dispelled off, but it needs to be the prior target. Burn it down, kill it quick. Then you got Skeletal Steeds. These are quite tanky from what I remember. They're quite simple though. They intercept random members, drop all threat, stun the targets. They do trample for AoE physical damage. So at that point you have off tanks in the raid group. They taunt, they try and get them out before they do a nasty trample. Then after that we have the first boss. Now we have a nice picture over here, so I don't really need to change over to the other. The other one has more description. Right, Vesuvius Let's go over here. Vesuvius will be patrolling back and forth in this room. I know you can only see half the room. This room is mirrored. It circles like this on the other side as well. He patrols back and forth with his understudies standing along the sides of this room. There are 4 of the understudies, and there's 1 of the boss. The pull is kind of the trickiest part of doing this. If anyone gets aggro of Vesuvius, they are most likely going to die. He hits really hard. He has Unbalancing Strike, dealing 350% of damage to the target and lowers defense by 100. This is the same ability as Twin M's. It can do a lot of damage. Like they say, will probably one-shot a shield-walled warrior. That is not an exaggeration. That can do that. So how do we do this? The understudies need to be mind-controlled. And that is what we're going to do on pull. You can mind soothe them out of range. Quickly move up while they're mind soothed. Now you'll be in range of mind controlling them. The key with tanking is you're going to be mind controlling this. The understudies are going to have 3 abilities, so to speak. They have a taunt. This is a strong taunt, lasts 20 seconds. Has a 1-minute cooldown, however. But at that point, you will most likely keep aggro. The understudies hit for as hard as 1.5k, 2k to the boss every 2 seconds. Fret is going to be good on these goods. They also have a shield wall. They last 20 seconds, has a 75% damage reduction. This is key that you taunt and shield wall. Ideally the other way around, as you don't want to take a surprise unbalanced strike and lose the understudy. As you might guess, the boss is tauntable. And once the mind control ends, they get a debuff called Mind Exhaustion. Lasts 60 seconds and they can't be mind controlled again. So, much like Ferlina, the way to do this is we have 2 priests open up with mind control. We want to drag the skull, the Vesuvius, over here and put him in this wall here. Back of the wall there. We want the mind controls to be over here. And as soon as the shield wall ends, we ideally want another understudy to be ready to do the same thing. Shield wall, taunt. Once that is done, you can let go of the mind control, and an off tank will be ready to pick it up. They will then drag it over to the right side and simply tank it over there. You might be seeing that healers over here, DPS will be roughly over here. Why might that be? That is because this is basically Chromagus again. He has a disrupting shout. Every 25 seconds he does an AoE mana burn that burns 4 to 5k mana, and it does double that mana in physical damage. This will, if not kill you, which it most likely will, you. Very much you. You will run out of all your mana and you will not be able to do anything. So the key is that mages and warlocks who are peeking out to do damage peek back in as a disrupting shout goes out. Healers would be standing along this wall here, much like Chromagus. You will be in line of sight of the mind controls, and the priests will, very importantly, not be in line of sight, because this would mana burn them, probably kill the priest, let the understudies go, Vesuvius would go on someone else. So it's quite a tricky fight to get right. And if someone pulls aggro, like somewhere to over aggro, which I don't think will be an issue, but if they did, they will die instantly. He hits incredibly hard, like I said. Once these 2 are done with their business and have let go of their things, they'll be, of course, tanked over here to the right. They'll be rotating mind controls, so since we have 4 understudies, we'll be using 2 at a time. And going through them one by one. Ideally, we do not want them to die. If we run out of understudies, we are going to die, because he hits really hard, unless he is close to dying himself. There is no way that a player can tank Vesuvius.
So the priests are tanking?
The priests will be tanking.
We'll be MCing them and then tanking him with the understudies, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And again, you don't have to worry about a lot of buttons. You press shield wall, you press taunt, you press right click. That's it. That's all you need to do. And then, again, yeah, you can keep tanking it after the taunt expires. You will have aggro. but at that point the understudy might die, which we ideally want to avoid because we don't want the understudies to die, because at that point we decrease our odds of killing the boss. Oh yeah, and a key for the tanks, do not sunder the understudies, for obvious reasons. If you sunder them, they will stay sundered when mind controlled, meaning the Vesuvius will do a lot more damage to them. So don't debuff, don't sunder, obviously don't cleave the understudies. There's no point in hitting them. Any questions?
I hope you're all paying attention in there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I just learned you can go for a smoke on this fight extra.
Can you? Oh, perfect.
That's a lot of information.
It's a lot to take in at one go, to be honest.
Will their sheet be available on Discord?
Should be.
Okay.
Great job. So.
Yeah, but Alex is doing it as well, not expecting everyone to...
How many of those understudies are there?
4 in total.
4, right? Yeah.
Yep, 4 total.
Because if you use your jump button as mind controller, I believe it was in the past, you can stop the channeling of your mind control, so don't push that button. Then you get straight away the debuff of that study.
Sounds like good advice.
Yeah, and you need to do also the second mind control. Don't start infuse. You need to do it 10 seconds before the first one is running out. If you miss the first cast of your mind control, you have at least some time for the second cast. Try to do it.
Might also be worth stacking the 4% hit so that it's guaranteed. See.
I believe you will always have the 1% miss chance, so 3%.
3%, apologies.
But also, don't forget, everyone. Everything Alex is going to just think about your class and your job. Like, as a DPS, your job isn't anything to do with the mind control and what's going on and anything like that. Your job here is just to be careful with line of sight, really, isn't it?
Exactly. And as a melee, you do not have a job. You hit the body, and that is it.
Yeah, so, don't overcomplicate it. And even if you take away 25%, 10% of what Alex is telling you, and it helps next week or week after next, then that's what we're doing it for. That's why Alex is putting all the time and effort in, isn't she? She's not expecting you to remember 100% of it. Well, she probably is, because she's pretty mean, but...
Sort of demanding.
So, keep up the good work.
We'll be having... we'll be describing this before, each boss, probably each trash pack as well. Give a quick brief on what they do. This is just to have a quick understanding of what is happening in Naxx. Just so you can tick back when you hear, oh yeah, Instructor Vesuvius, you LOS him, right? And then, yeah, that's right. Whoa.
The military wing was always the hardest anyway.
Exactly. I believe we will go into this last, as Vesuvius, again, can take some getting used to. Gothic I'm not too scared about, and then we'll get to Nightmare. Shall we move on?
Yes, let's.
There's not a lot of trash after this. There are weapons after this. We have Unholy Axes flying around. Unholy Axes do mortal strikes, doing a lot of damage and reduced healing. They also do whirlwinds, and they do sweeping strikes, which is next 5 attacks hit the nearest enemy. You want to spread these out and put 2 tanks on each. Ideally, taunt swapping on the mortal strike. Unholy Staff, they do arcane explosions every 8 seconds, a lot of damage. They are not very tanky from what I remember, so you quickly burn them down. They cast Frost Nova, rooting it for 8 seconds. They cast Polymorph on the main threat, so you dispel that as fast as possible. Then you have Unholy Swords. They have Thrash, which is, they do, I believe, 2 extra attacks, much like the dragons in Black and there. And they have Cleave, which hits the closest 10 targets, so really this is a whirlwind rather than Cleave. All of these boil down to keep everyone healed. Kill the things. Then we got Gothic. Let me pull up a map. I swear this thing had a map before. Oh yeah, down here's a map. So, this is the map. There are going to be two sides. That's the main important thing I want to show on the map. There's the undead side, there's the living side. Although it might be mirrored to the map. The map might be incorrect. Don't look at exactly what this says. But there are two sides. Once the combat starts, these sides will be blocked off. This gate will close. Meaning that we want to split the raid in two. Key thing about the split is that the undead mobs are immune to magic. So there's going to be a lot more spellcasters on the live side. So what is going to come out of the live side? We're going to have unrelenting trainees. These do basically nothing. They don't have a lot of health. They have about 5,000 health. Then we have the unrelenting Death Knights. These have an intercept. They have a Shadow Mark, which is an AoE, puts a debuff on players' hit that causes them to be hit by the Rider's Shadowbolt Volley. And as you might expect, the Rider, the unrelenting Rider, has a Shadowbolt Volley. This only hits players with Shadow Mark. This hits quite hard for 3 to 4k, and he has a Shadow Aura, dealing shadow damage in melee range. So, like it says, all casters should go to the live side, because they won't be able to do anything on the undead side. Most melee should go on the dead side. If we have a lot more melee, which I believe at the moment is quite balanced, so we might simply be rolling with that. The key mechanic is that every time you kill a mob on the live side, it will spawn the same mob, except the undead version on the dead side. So how fast the live side is killing their stuff is how fast the dead side need to kill theirs. It will most likely not be an issue. These have very little health. The live side is going to prioritize killing the Rider, as these cause the Shadowbolt Volley and Shadow Aura. If they're not killing the Rider, they should be killing the Death Knight, which has the intercept and the Shadow Mark Whirlwind. And if they're not killing the Death Knight, they should be killing trainees last. The dead side is going to be focusing on killing the Death Knight. Let's go over what they do first. Spectral trainees have an arcane explosion. Spectral Death Knights have a cleave and a mana burn. Spectral Riders have a Shadow Aura, as well as a Drain Life. Spectral Horse has an AoE slow and a Drain Life. You might have noticed a horse came in. When you kill the Unrelenting Rider, it turns into two mobs in fact. It turns into the Rider and the horse. The horse is incredibly tanky and does a lot of AoE. They are quite nasty. The actual priority here, I'm not entirely sure I agree with. I believe the horse can be mostly tanked. As long as you have enough tanks, you can tank the horse. It will do AoE damage, you can tank it off to the side. Again, most of these are very squishy. They have about 8,000 health at most. That is the trainees. The Death Knights have about 15,000. 8,000 health is also how much the Legionnaires on Razorgore have. They spawn at about the same interval as the ads on Razorgore. Essentially, I believe... oh yeah, for this boss pop a Shadow Protection Potion before, as if you do get hit by Shadow Volley, it helps a lot. I believe this is going to turn into Razorgore 2, where we end up doing nothing for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. For most of these, you can stack them, you can burn them down. The dead side will be full of the melee, so we'll be enjoying the cleavage on all of the hordes, ideally. And once these 4 minutes and 30 ends, through which random mobs have been spawning throughout, Gothic finally comes down. Gothic has few to none mechanics. He has a Shadow Bolt that he casts on the highest threat if no one's in melee. And then he has a Harvest Soul. This is the only problematic mechanic, if you want to call it that. Every 15 seconds he does a stackable debuff, reducing all stats by 10%. This is a timer on how fast you can kill him. He doesn't have a lot of health. He has about 500,000, 600,000 if I remember correctly. So he will be going down pretty soon. He starts on the live side, so the caster side, and then after 20 seconds he'll be teleported to the dead side. When he's at 30%, the gate opens and both sides can get together and finish off everything. It's a lot of different ads, but it's going to boil down to, we see this ad, we kill this ad, what do we kill next, and focusing on a priority list through that. Mechanics wise, there's not a lot you need to care about. As a caster, don't stand near the unrelenting Death Knight to not be shadow marked and stuff like that. But it's going to boil down to hit the baddies and hit them as hard, as fast as you can.
Yeah, it's a DPS race, see who's alive in phase 2.
Yeah. And again, he doesn't have a whole bunch of health. I can look it up after and just double check that, but he does not have a lot of health. And they spawn at, I believe this one had, yeah, this one had time between spawns. It's quite advanced. So at 24 seconds we'll be seeing the first trainees, and after that every 20 seconds we're going to be seeing them, and they're going to be spawning 3 at a time. So again, the trainees have 5,000 health. So every 20 seconds we're going to get 15,000 worth of damage to do. If we stay on top of this, this will not be any issue. Any questions for Gothic?
Seeing as we have more melee, like I think in Wrath of the Lich King it was just a case where you kill them on one side and they'd spawn on the other. I don't know if there was the melee mechanic, but it usually required a bit of coordination, like, as to how many you were going to kill.
Yeah.
Because if you had higher DPS on one side, the other side would usually end up getting overwhelmed.
Yeah. Generally, the way WoW Classic is balanced, melee are luckily the stronger DPS, and as they are the ones on the dead side, which is the trash can where the live side tosses their mobs to be tossed away, and then the dead side cleans it up. I think we should be good. Of course, the melee side should be shouting out if they are getting overwhelmed, and I think we'll be having, logically, both Extra and I will be on the live side, as we're both. Although no, I think the plan was Extra and I stay split between the two sides. So we'll be communicating as much as possible and making sure that we don't get overwhelmed in this. The live side is generally less scary than the dead side. The dead side is scarier. The only scary thing about live side is the unrelenting Death Knight, which does the shadow mark, where you don't stack, it's not an issue. Anything else? I think it might be good to move on. Right, next up we have a bit of trash.
Again with the Acolyte. I hate those guys.
Yeah. They are basically recycled versions of everything else we've seen so far. Flesh Rot, Disease, Frenzy, with below 50% health is the goals. Pick them up, don't pull aggro during Frenzy, cleave them, kill them. Acolytes, the Shadowbolt Volleys, Arcane Explosion, they have low health, stack them up, kill them, make sure to AoE heal a lot. Plague Gargoyles, they do the Acid Volley, they heal up if they drop low health. And of course let the debuffs drop off. And finally, the Death Knight Vindicators, which are, again, another name for the things we were encountering earlier. Aura of Agony does a 30-yard range stacking damage over time. They have Cleave, they have Death Coil, which horrifies people, and they have Necronite Guardians with Arcane Explosion. You kill the Guardians first, the Arcane Explosion is quite nasty, they don't have a lot of health. Now, the boss we've all been waiting for, huh? For Horseman. This is a fight I could probably spend an entire hour going over, but I'm going to try and make it as fast as possible. first of all, pre-pop your Greater Shadow Protection Potion, and pre-pop your Greater Fire Protection Potions. You want both of these for this. Let's go over what they're all going to do. There are 4 different bosses. They're all going to cast Mark. They all have one individual mark. They all do the same thing, but they are 4 different debuffs. We will get into this. They will cast a debuff at 21 seconds and every 13 seconds after. It has a 70-yard range, so very hard to outrange, and lasts for 75 seconds. It also reduces all current threat by 50%. They have an enrage at low health. They have a shield wall, which they cast at 50% and 20%. This lasts for 20 seconds, much like a normal shield wall, reduces damage taken by 75%. And once they die, they summon a spirit of themselves. It does the same mark mechanic, but they will stay rooted. They will not attack anything unless you move close to them. So they will simply be ignored and stay away from them. Let's go over the individual mechanic. You have High Lord Mograine. He has an ability called Righteous Fire. This is a 25% proc rate, as in every time he attacks, there's a chance he does this. It does about 2,300 fire damage, and a debuff which does 600 fire damage every 8 seconds. It's quite a lot of damage, especially fire damage. So, if you're going to be tanking Mograine, and we'll get to Corphas in a second with Corphas, I'd recommend putting a bit of fire resistance on your best pieces only, like Dark Iron Helm and the legs from Black Moon Hair. Then we got the second one, Corphas. He has a Meteor, which he will be casting at 21 seconds and then an interval of 9 to 16 seconds, so you're never quite sure when. It does 13,000 fire damage split evenly among the people hit. And this has a 35-yard cast range. So ranged can outrange it, but ranged will not outrange it, which we will talk about in a second. Zerzeliak. He has an ability called Holy Wrath. This is Cafoon I-Beam. Every 10 to 15 seconds you cast it, it changes to players within 10 yards, doubling each jump. So if we go down here quickly to just look, take a quick peek. We're going to be tanking each of them in a corner. So if we say Blum over here, we have Zeliek over here, Mograine over here, Corphas over here. You do not want melee in on Zeliek, because if melee go in on Zeliek, they will start chaining the Holy Wrath and probably die. It does about 1,500 to start with, meaning after just 2 jumps it will probably do a lot of damage. So melee will be staying away from Zeliek for that reason. Finally, Lady Blameur has a Void Zone. She casts this on a player every 10 to 15 seconds, a random player in range, 40 yards or so, and it deals 4,000 shadow damage per second. It looks like the Cafoon Void, if you have that in your mind. It is really, really small. It's about like 2 yards wide, maybe 3. So as soon as this drops on you, first of all, DBM is probably going to shout very loudly, and second of all, please try and see it below you if you're on Lady Blameur. In that case, move. Move as fast as you can. You can probably take 1 tick of this, but you don't want to take 2. So all in all, not a lot of mechanics, right? Each of them only has 1 each. The entire fight is centered around the marks. Because what the marks do is the marks deal damage to you when they're applied. And the more marks you have, the more damage they will apply. At about 4 or 5 marks, you will most likely, 4 will drop you low. 5 will probably kill a DPS. Instantly. Unless you're shielded or such. So let's go over how we're going to do this. So this is a room. The bosses are going to start in a line over here. we want to get them split into a corner each as fast as possible. So for this endeavor, we have 4 tanks ready to start picking them up. Go by this DPS tank plus tank position. In fact, I have a bigger picture, let's use that. Going by this, let's have tank 1, 4, 5, and 6 pick them up. Who these tanks are going to be? Quite random. 1 and 4 over here, Mograine and Corfas, hit a lot harder than Zeliek and Blummer. So it's recommended to have the main tanks over here. You might have noticed there will be 8 tanks in total. They are the green marks. We'll be using a lot of DPS warriors, so most likely the DPS warriors will be handling Zeliek and Blummer. Now, the kind of tricky part is the pull. The way we're going to do this is people are going to be moving up to the side along the wall here, staying along the wall, getting into the corner. You will not pull, although if you take a step out, you will. It's very close. Now, after that, healers and Zeliek and Blummer tanks can move up to this edge, and they will be line of sight from the bosses. They can move up here. Again, you need to move in a very straight line. If you stray from the path, you will pull. So you can end up here before you're pulling. So tank 1 and 4 are going to start this fight by running in, picking up Corfas, pulling him down into southwest, Mograine into the southeast. At that point, tank 6 and 5 are going to peek around, grab their respective targets, drag them into the corners. Each of these is also going to have a backup tank, tank 2, tank 3, tank 7, tank 8. We will also be splitting DPS, all DPS, in 4 groups. Obviously these will not be in-game groups, as we're a couple more DPS than 20. But you will belong to a group, and it's very important that you know what group you belong to. So group 1 and group 4 are going to start in on Fane Corfas. Group 1 is. Group 4 is going to start in on Mograine. Correction. Group 2 and 3, as well as tank 2, 3, and 7, 8, are going to be standing in the middle. This middle is the safe zone. You will not be taking marks from any of the bosses stood here. So once these are grabbed in, 21 seconds into the fight, they will apply their first mark. This will do quite little damage. I think it's about 250 to 500. 13 seconds later, they will be doing another mark. And of course they're casting their respective abilities. Zeliek doing the Holy Wrath, which won't be bouncing, so it's not very important. Blummer will probably be targeting either a healer or the tank with a Void Zone, so it's very important that the Blummer tank stays on their feet. Mograine is going to hit their target hard. Corfas is going to drop a meteor. Very important as well that anyone who's DPSing Corfas is going to stay in melee range, including ranged DPS. We need everyone soaking at all times. So Mark 2 goes out. Mark 3 goes out. This is where the fight really starts, and where we all need to make sure we know what we are doing, and I hope I will make that clear. Group, at this point, tank 2 and group 2 will be moving in. Tank 2 will be taunting Fane Corfas. Assuming that the taunt succeeds, we'll get to that later. He will now be tanking the boss. Dragging it over, obviously tanking in the same corner as group 1 was in. At this point, 1 runs into the middle, as well as the raid group number 2 is going to move into 1's position, and once they have arrived, then and only then is 1 going to move out. it is quite particular because, again, this faint Corfas is the one who has the meteor. If Group 1 were to leave as soon as they get their third mark, which is what you will be doing on the other bosses, the tank will be alone. If a meteor drops at that point, the tank is dead. You cannot survive a 13k meteor unless you pop something like Shield Wall. So, now we have Group 2 and Tank 2 down here. Same over here. As soon as the third mark drops over at Mograine, Group 4 is going to move out, as they have no such restriction for staying with the boss. Group 3, as well as Tank 3, are going to move in, going to be trying to taunt. Hopefully all goes well. So now you have Group 2 and Group 3 in here, and Group 4 and Group 1 are now in the middle. They have marks on, keep in mind. They have 3 marks. Group 4 will be having 3 marks of the mark of Mograine. Group 1 will be having 3 marks of the mark of Corfas. The key now is that they stand in the middle, where they don't take any marks, and after 13 seconds passes, the first marks will be going out on the Group 2 and 3, now in their respective corners. 13 seconds passes, the second mark goes out. 13 more seconds passes, the third mark goes out. At this point, 39 seconds have passed off the debuff. So what Group 4 is going to be doing, Group 4 started Mograine, then moved out once they had their 3 marks. They are now going to be moving to Corfas. Keep in mind that marks are individual. Their marks will not be refreshed. They will have 3 marks of Mograine, and once they get in here and swap with Group 2, they will start to get their first Corfas stack. Of course, Group 1 will be doing the same over at Mograine. It sounds very complicated, and it kind of is until it clicks. And when it clicks, it becomes quite easy. The key is, let's say that I'm a DPS in Group 1. Let's go with Group 4. Let's say I'm a DPS in Group 4. I stay here until I have 3 marks. At 3 marks I move in, or move out into the safe spot. Once 3 more marks have gone out, I will move down left. I will stay here until 3 marks. And there comes the exception again, that you don't move away from Corfas until the second group has arrived. So, at that point, you move back to the middle, stay for 3 more marks for the others, and then move back out to Mograine. Well, DPS and tanks will always be moving in a kind of triangular fashion. Back and forth, always moving in marks of 3. So you move into a boss at 3, then you move out, then you move in, then you move out, then you move in. As said, at 50% they will be popping shield wall, making them harder to kill. But eventually, of course, they will die. At that point, their spirit will remain where they were, but we no longer need to place people here. Tank can get out, DPS can get out, and we can start focusing on just Mograine. Roughly, these will be dropping as they have the same DPS varying between them. They will be dropping at roughly the same time. At that point, the easy part is done, or the hard part is done rather. Now we're on to Zeliek and Blemmer. Zeliek, melee will not go into ever. So melee are simply going to move into Blemmer, take 3 stacks, make sure not stunned in Void Zone, move out, wait until their stacks completely dropped, then move in for another 3 stacks, and so on until Blemmer drop. Ranged are going to be focused on Zeliek, where ranged can actually rotate between, just like before. Now, tanks. Tank rotation is quite tricky. You might remember, perhaps tanks and off tanks, your tank class officer nagging about you about some item called Nat Pagel's Broken Reel, which is some weird trinket from CG that gives 10% hit rate to your spells. This is where this comes in handy. Because by default, your taunt will have a 17% chance to miss. That is a 1 in 6 chance. That's not great. Especially with this many taunts going out. So the way we're going to mitigate this chance is by popping Nat Pagel's Broken Reel. You want to pop this while you're traveling to the boss you want to taunt. So say we're doing this at the start. So 4 has just got 3 stacks. You are tank number 3. You're going to move in. You're going to pop your Nat Pagel's Broken Reel. You're going to move in. You're going to taunt. At that point, it's 7% chance to fail. It'll probably hit. If it doesn't hit, do not hit your Mock and Blow. Do not hit Challenge Shout. They do not accomplish anything, because they do not match Fret. If they don't hit, you're simply going to stay and wait. Once your taunt comes off cooldown again, hit it again. Assuming they hit, all goes well, you stay here, you tank for 39 seconds. Then, once you have your 3 marks, someone will come to relieve you. Once you're relieved, you go back to the middle, you stay here 39 seconds. And then 39 seconds passes again, and you can go to Feign Corvus ready to taunt. At this point, 2 minutes will have elapsed, meaning that your Nat Pagel's Broken Reel is off cooldown. It will be off cooldown every single time you need to use it. And of course, tanks up in north will be doing the exact same rotation. You're going to want 8 to relieve 6, and 6 is going to run into middle, where after 3 stacks you're going to run to Blaumeux, and so on. And that is really it for DPS and tanks. Healers have a different rotation. So if you're a healer, here's your rotation. It's quite different, but it also is not very complicated in the end. So again, you're going to be divided into 3 groups. This division assumes that you are 12 healers, which is a couple more than we usually take. But you can have 1 fewer healer in a group. It does not matter. So, assuming that we fill each of these, the important thing is to keep in mind what group you are. Say you're a healer in group 1. You're a Mogrin healer. You start over in Mogrin. At mark 1, as soon as the first mark drops, you run north. You run north to Zeliek. You're going to stay here, fill in the Zeliek tank, until mark 4. Then you keep rotating. If you're mark 2, if you're group 2, over at Feign Corvus, you're going to be rotating on mark 2, over to Mogrin. Once mark 5 has gone out, you're going to rotate north to Zeliek. This ensures that 4 people are in rotation at the same time. If we instead had all people of one group rotate at the same time, everyone would be rotating at the same time, meaning there wouldn't be any healers on any of the tanks. Obviously not ideal. So the key is learning what group are you in. Grab a sticky note, put it on your monitor or something. Very important that you know when to swap. The first swap is the only important one, knowing I'm group 1, so I swap on mark 1. After that, you're going to be on a boss, meaning that you will be taking the same marks as everyone else. So after that, you can simply look, do I have 3 marks? Yes, the 3rd mark has gone out. It's time for me to move. And that is pretty much 4 horsemen. Very much simplified.
What is the time between the marks?
13 seconds.
Okay.
So,
Sorry, is it, so looking at group 1 swaps, would it be straight after the 3rd before the 4th drops, or straight after the 4th?
Straight after, when it drops.
Okay.
So, the first one goes out at 21 seconds, so if you're over here, at 21 seconds, when the first mark goes out, you go. DBM is going to have a countdown for marks, so you're simply going to watch mark parenthesis 4, and mark parenthesis 4 is yours, so you go.
Does DBM keep the count of the marks?
I do believe so, yes.
It will be on you. You will be on your screen.
Oh,
too.
like a stacking.
Like a debuff on you.
Exactly, like I said, only the first one is the one that matters. You need to know that you rotate on 1. After that, once you're up at Zeliek, assuming you're starting here, you'll be taking 3 Zeliek marks. Then you move on to Blaumeux. You'll be taking 3 Blaumeux marks. Then you move down here. So on.
Cool.
So for the tanks and DPS, they only need to worry about the two raid bosses in the north or in the south. So there's two raid groups fighting at the same time, mostly for the tanks and DPS. So they never need, the north group never need to worry about the Mograine and Pain. The south group never need to worry about the Brahma and Zeliek.
Yeah, the north group will not have any DPS, as these are the two priority. These ones are the more dangerous. These ones do the more damage. So we're going to be focusing on these first. North group is only going to consist of rotating healers and the 4 tanks that are up in north. Other than that, yeah. And once your marks are dead, you can either play backup tank in case a taunt resists, or you can simply DPS, move with the DPS groups and up here.
So the DPS groups 2 and 3 are basically just waiting their turn to swap.
At the start, yes. So again, on the pull, we're going to have group number 1 dead in this corner, sneak around the corner. Group number 4 sneak around their corner. Going to move up to pull. And group 4 is going to be, group 4 tank is going to be ready to pull it in. Once they've done this, they're going to hit the thing. Group 2 and 3, once they're pulled into position, will run through the middle. Carefully run through the middle, taking no mark through the time, as the marks go out at 21 seconds, the first one. After that, it's 13 seconds. And then they're going to wait for 3 marks. They're just going to sit here.
Max, with the DPS, I remember going from one boss straight to the other boss because they have different marks. So why, as a melee, would I go to the center? Because I just quickly checked. Melee can just go from Tain to Morgan, from Morgan to Tain, and vice versa. So we don't have to wait in the middle for the mark.
You cannot bounce between 2 bosses because your marks will not have dropped at this point. If you were to bounce between these 2 bosses at 3 marks, you would at... So let's say you're DPSing Fane for 39 seconds. You then move to Mograine. You DPS him for 39 seconds, then you're swapping. 39 seconds have passed since you were last here. You will have 36 seconds left on your mark and we'll start stacking up again. There is a strategy, I will say. There is the strategy that involves playing in a triangle, a bigger triangle, where DPS goes from Mograine to Fane Corphas to Blameux to Mograine to Fane Corphas to Blameux. This is a lot more complicated to pull off. This is the simpler, more solid strategy.
Okay, because then I did the triangle one because I forgot a few details, but I do remember that we directly went from one boss to the second, to another boss, and we didn't have to wait as many.
The problem with that strategy is that, again, it's a bit more complicated to do, especially as you're going to have 3 different rotations at this point. And this rotation, DPS and tanks share rotation, so it'll be a little less confusing. Otherwise, tanks are going to keep this rotation. DPS do their triangle rotation. Healers do their square rotation. And at the same point, you'll be taking Blameux down, you'll be taking Corphas down, you'll be taking Mograine down. You cannot touch Zeliek as a melee, so he will be the roadblock. You will be waiting for Zeliek to die a long time at the end.
And do they have to die at the same time?
No, they do not.
Okay, so if one survives longer, it's not an issue.
No, unless... they do have an enrage. What is the enrage?
100 marks.
100 marks, which is like... What is it like?
20 minutes.
20 minutes, yeah, that's right. 20 minutes is the enrage. Realistically, they're not going to hit that.
You can't rogues never do what they're told, and they're supposed to not do what they're told. You can go from 1, if you start at 1, you can be at 1, then go to the middle again, do cheeky step up to tank number 5 up in the left corner, take 2 marks, go back down again, and be ready to go down to where tank number 4 and group number 4 is. But I didn't tell you that.
No, you know, and we will be yelling at you if we see that, do not worry.
I can remember doing DPS though as a melee on Zeliek.
In relatively, probably,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not something I would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. Another unrecommended thing you can do as a warlock, something that I've done in private servers, it's the carousel method. If you're spec'd into SM and you have Grim Bleach, you can wait while the marks are on cooldown, and you can walk in, sneak in a few dots, and walk out and just move around as a carousel. That's something similar to what rogues can do, as VRX said, but Not recommended until we're comfortable with the fight, I would say.
Because that leaves another question is, we have deboss slots normally on, let's say, one boss, but we have 4 bosses here, so can we do something smart with the deboss slots that we normally can't use?
Not on the 2 posts, no.
It doesn't really change anything.
Yeah, I can't think of any revolutionizing.
Well, we have only warlock buffs, I think 3, I'm not so good at warlocks. And they're not gonna do all those, whatever it's called, curses, I think, on all the 4 bosses, right?
They're going to be doing them on the 2 that we're going to kill, I assume.
Yes.
So that would mean we would miss, I think there's a curse benefiting me, or am I wrong?
Curse of Recklessness, yeah.
Yeah, so then our DPS's melee would be lower than we normally used to.
Why?
Only from the start, then after they apply it.
And put it on at the beginning.
Yeah, Curse of Recklessness lasts for 2 minutes, and as was said, you, assuming let's say there's a warlock in here, they apply the curse, they move out, they go in here, 78 seconds have passed, they apply a curse. There will probably be a warlock in here as well, so they go in, they apply their Curse of Recklessness as it will be dropping when they go in. I am sure the warlocks will work out curses for us.
Okay.
Will hunters have issues on Tain, I wonder? Because of the limited...
Yes, yes, you will be stuck in melee.
Yeah.
That is a good point.
Then if we do the triangle, then just Tain and Mograine only, then hunters... Then Mograine will probably die before Tain, depending on our DPS.
They do have different health as well.
Okay.
Let's see, this one has the health documented. Yes, in fact, Fane is actually tankier. I thought it was the other way around. According to this, Corphas has 590k. Mograine has 530k. So they'll probably be dying a little earlier. But due to the shield wall, it kind of equalizes.
I wonder if the pets get the marks. Just curious.
Good question.
And if the pets can soak the meteor from Tain.
If they can,
share the damage.
It's the same ability as a Nubizaf, so I'd say if they can soak the Nubizaf one, they can.
The pets get soak and the pets get the marks.
And I believe Shield Wall is a shared ability between all bosses. It's not just one boss.
Yeah, exactly. Shield Wall goes on all of them.
Is that logs from PTR?
I'm gonna see about health numbers quickly. Just make sure that is accurate. Yes, so Corphas has about 600k, Mograine 535, and the other ones have 500. Anything else interesting to check out here? Let's see if the pet is counted in here.
You need to click on the hunter, I think. It's under the hunter. So go check what.
Let's take a look at what Zimp took. Zimp was indeed taking damage from Mark. So.
But does he take damage from Meteor, I wonder?
Nothing documented. Any other questions related to this?
As far as I remember, the pet does get the meteor damage as well.
What was that?
As far as I remember, pet gets meteor damage.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And if they take meteor damage, they can soak the damage if we ever have an issue with Pain. We can send quickly our pet there too.
Yep.
So you can leave our pet on stay in the center, so they be safe, and just send our pet to Tain quickly if in an emergency. For example, don't resist.
Correct.
We'll see when we get there. It's not that hard if you worry about what your assignment is. Only about your assignment.
Yeah, indeed. Of course, we'll be marking each of these 4 DPS groups. And I'm thinking, oh no, healers don't have any value of marking them. All healers need to completely understand when they should rotate here. That is the most important class to understand this, to be honest. Melee, you can simply follow your mark. You can know, oh, I'm supposed to follow circle, and circle is walking away. Let's follow circle, as long as circle knows what they're doing for us. So does anyone have any questions related to this? If they're a little confused, feel free to ask. Any questions, any questions.
I'm trying to think of a question.
If everyone has a complete understanding of this, we will be a lot easier. This is a long fight.
Are understood, and why we need to move in a triangle and not in a straight line. I'm just trying to think of something else. I don't know.
I think if you do that, you're going to go too deep tonight.
I think it's okay. It's good.
Yeah, so the key is really DPS understanding, tanks understanding. Again, you don't want to mock and blow or challenge and shout. Ever. Because while these will give you temporary aggro on the boss, it will not give you threat. Meaning that when they wear off, it will simply run back to whoever was on. You can attempt another taunt, which you might be luckier with, but if you are unlucky, again, it's a death. A tank taking 1 extra mark is perfectly fine. The thing that kills you is bosses getting out of where they're supposed to be. If Corvus runs into the middle and puts more marks here, the rotation breaks. Everything breaks down. So,
No, continue, please.
yeah, so tanks, no mock and blows, no challenge shout, just taunt. That's it.
You mentioned the net bagel thingy, Lex.
Yes.
But are we giving the warriors a chance to farm it? Because we do mostly idle runs at the moment, and if we do a full run, we usually skip the boss and then just check the low red. It drops in the fishing boss. So how are they going to get it?
I would not say we're skipping it most of the time. We have
doing the fish boss most of the time.
Super runs for the.
We did a lot of early days, and I kept telling everybody, to all the tanks and all the warriors that might end up tanking, they should grab the wheel. I don't remember how many wheels, I don't remember how many fishing books dropped, but I summoned alone 25 fish bosses, and yeah, we got a lot of reels and a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of people that left or is not with us anymore, so we have a lot of people with the reel, but there's also new people that don't have it.
In the last 8 CGs, we've run the fish boss 7 times.
Well,
We are trying our best in the full runs.
The last 4 GCGs I did was only idle runs, so...
Yes, the idle runs don't currently cover Gazranka. It's something that we've quickly covered on. We should maybe consider that.
Maybe we can do a conversation about it. Maybe we can just ask around who has it and see that if someone doesn't have it, we can make a run for it or something.
We do run past the fish boss, so if a tank that needs it has the fishes needed, they can just summon it.
Yeah, it's easy to get, but we're getting off topic, I think. The real is easy to get in the idle runs and in the full runs, so we have plenty of those going along.
Well, I try to avoid that if you are there, actually, that 3 things are like, I don't have that one. It's just preparation, but not everybody prepares in a similar way, and as Virak said, some of them have stopped playing with new warriors, so it's a small thing to check if they have it or not and help them out.
That's a tank class officer issue.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this for months. They should speak up if they don't have it.
Okay.
one small detail that I missed that is not actually that small. The bosses can be disarmed. So any warriors should switch it to defensive stance to quickly disarm them. It helps a lot with boss damage.
Especially Mock Grain.
Indeed.
Disarming might steal that blade.
Right. Are there any more questions for the 4 horsemen?
How many stacks should the tanks get at most?
At most, there is a scenario where there is nothing you can do about it. You have to just take as many as you can and pop cooldowns. If you should be still rotating on 3. The ideal scenario is that your backup tank comes in, it taunts at 3 stacks, you go out 3 stacks.
Okay, so ideally you stay on 3, but worst case, there isn't any...
Worst case, there's nothing you can do about it.
Okay.
If the taunts aren't landing, the boss will stay on you, and then you have to do your best to survive. Again, the damage will be going up, but a tank can take probably 5, 6 with a shield, and you can also pop a greater shadow prot to protect yourself against the marks. But this should not that should not be a thing. 3 marks if it happens. The backup tank will probably be coming in about 7 seconds after the mark, meaning you can taunt, and you might be taking a 4th stack on the way out if you're a bit slow. If the taunt misses, it's another 10 seconds before next taunt, which means you'll probably still end up taking 4. If the next taunt misses, then you're a 5. It has to be a lot of missed taunts in order to actually get up to 6.
Okay, so it's quite important that when there's a taunt swap, the tank that is still the initial tank just waits until the other tank takes aggro before they move. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
If you were to miss that the taunt was missed and pull it into the middle again, it's most likely a wipe.
I saw some strategies on the PTR. They left a razor outside in the event of a wipe. Even on PTR with the extra damage. So I was wondering if that's a thing.
Sacrificing a healer / ret pally / something.
Something outside, something who can res someone outside who can res so they can quickly reset, but I don't think they can do that now that I'm seeing it out loud because of the boss aggro range.
Yeah, you might be able to res people in, I'm not sure about even the mid, but people if they die up here in the north, no, you cannot res them.
Yeah. It popped in my head just as I was saying it.
Yeah, it might be something to do like the first time, but have something standing far away. But you can't resurrect people in combat. It would be you have to run in and rest people in the foreground. If you were wiping when we're doing 2 force bosses, or 2 first bosses of them, or when melee or casters are there, you can grab half the raid, and you can summon the other. You can summon the tanks and healers that are dying far away. But probably time saver.
Yeah, it's a way to speed it up if we're expecting a wipe.
If you kill the 2 first bosses, and the person who's out, that's most likely a kill, then the person who's outside or far away can just run in and help or join the fight, so he doesn't miss out. But
Right, if there's no more questions, I'll be going over the Frost Wing, which will be the most mechanically difficult one, and as such, I'm aware of the time. This took a little longer than expected, but might be able to quickly do it. Quickest Frost Wing you've ever seen. Everyone up for that?
Yep. Sure. You can continue. If someone can stay, can't stay.
Yeah, exactly.
How far do you anticipate us getting? A wing a night or what?
Spider Wing is easy. Plague Wing will not be a problem. Abomination will not be a problem as soon as we get past Patchwork. And 1 or 2 wipes on Thaddeus, maybe, learning that. 4 Horsemen might be tricky. 4 Horsemen will take a lot of learning. As you've seen, the rotation is tricky, but as long as everyone understands it, just, theoretically, if everyone understood the rotation, there's no reason why we can't one-shot the boss. But it will take time to click.
It's an attrition fight, not a DPS race. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're gonna be lucky to do 2 wings a night, aren't you?
Yes, especially on progress, we are limited by time. I believe plan is to go Spider into Plague. These won't take too long, I believe, so we might even be able to give Patchwork a shot. But after that, we might be a bit stuck for time. We could try going faster, but then risk wipe, so let's play safe. I know. I think we can get past all of this.
Sapphiron, I think Sapphiron will be easy. It's just another boss. Simple mechanics.
Just another boss.
Yeah, Kel'Thuzad is gonna be the money boss.
Saffron is a bit of a gear check, which is the issue. Let's go to Saffron, shall we? Yep. Saffron has 2 phases, which he will rotate between. Saffron has in the first phase, a frontal cleave. So this is quite simple. You don't stand in front of the boss. Recommended positioning is aiming for something like this. The main tank over here. The entrance is to the east. The melee along the side, split roughly halfway, and having 2 caster groups loosely spread. As well as healers. I include healers and casters. Throughout the entire fight, you're going to have a debuff called Frost Aura. This will be constantly applying through the fight and damaging you for 600 frost damage every 2 seconds. It can be resisted through frost resistance, which is very important to have in this fight. You are going to be aiming for, hopefully, you don't want to give him pure damage too much. So somewhere around, if we're going in day 1, so we haven't got any crafted gear or any luck with drops, 130, 150. After that, it's going to be a lot easier to gear as we're getting the frost resist pieces from Nax and the crafted pieces. Those are going to go miles on this fight. So you're going to be taking constant damage. Second ability is a life drain that goes out every 24 or so seconds. It's a debuff that lasts for 12 seconds. It has a 100-yard range, you can't outrange it. And it's a curse. It drains 1750 to 2250 health and heals Saffron for double that amount every 3 seconds. So as it's a curse, it goes out on, I believe, 5 people. We should be decursing that as fast as possible. Finally, you have Blizzard. This is a huge blizzard. It's denser, it's larger than normal blizzard. It will be very visible. And it should be visible because it does a chunk of damage in the form of 3063 to 3937 damage every 2 seconds. It slows your move speed by 65% if you're in it, and it has to last for 15 seconds. This is not a normal blizzard. It moves. It will be drifting towards players. It's nasty. You do not want to get caught in this, and it will be aiming for people, which is why we want loosely spread and melee to be split up in order to minimize the chance that you're stuck in it. If someone is stuck in this, you have to just heal them through, and they have to do whatever they can to get out, but it will be tough, 65%, and if it is moving in the same direction you're moving, good luck getting out. Then we got phase 2 coming up. After, I believe it is 45 seconds or so, and then we'll go into that. I think it's 45 seconds into the fight, Saffron will go into phase 2. If you have fought Onyxia, it's much the same. Ranged can attack it, melee can attack you with abilities, but you cannot auto-attack it. So warriors cannot generate rage, which is sad. Much like Onyxia, there's also a simple fireball, except it's an ice bolt. It does 3000 frost damage in a 10-yard radius. This will stun people hit, and the main person hit gets an ice block put on them, which will last for 25 seconds. They cannot take any damage while in this ice block. They cannot take any action. There's no way to break it. You'll just be stuck in there. For phase 2, we want to be positioning something like this, with melee around the middle. Saffron is always going to be in the middle in phase 2. And ranged loosely spread around in kind of a half circle. We want to be using this right side of the room. We don't want to be using the left side. So it's going to be targeting someone. Let's say it targets this person with an ice bolt. Then it's going to target another person, then another person, then another, then another. For a total of 5 ice bolts. After these 5 ice bolts are out, it's going to cast the final ability, which is Frost Breath. It drops a massive ice bomb from above, which will slowly be going down towards the middle, and while it's slow, it is moving down, so you need to get moving. Once that touches the ground, everything in line of sight will take 75,000 to 125,000 damage. Not a typo, that's a lot of damage. So it takes about 5 to 6 seconds after casting to land. So how do we do this? These ice bolted players are going to turn into ice blocks, and the key is that every single person in the room needs to find the closest ice block to them, stand line of sight from it. So the ice bomb is going to drop in the middle, so if there's an ice bolt here, you're safe in this area behind here. If it lands on this person in melee, then you want to get behind the melee. You need to, in phase 2, keep an eye around you. Who's getting ice bolted around me? Is the person right next to me getting ice bolted? Good. Let's be ready to move on that after Frost Breath. You don't want to stack in phase 2, however, as the ice bolt does 3k frost damage AoE. So you want to stay spread, but you want to be able to, within 5 to 6 seconds, be behind an ice block. So if you were to see that 3 ice bolts in, all of them are like in the north section, and you're in the south, it's time to move. You need to move. If you don't get behind there, you will die. The boss is also one of the hardest hitting bosses in the game, tied with Kel'Thuzad. So tanks are most likely not going to have the luxury of wearing any frost dress in this fight. And everyone is in general going to be taking a lot of damage. Assuming that we have 150 frost dress, so an average of 50% resist, people will be taking 150 frost damage every 2 seconds. That's a lot.
Is it pushback?
It does not push back. That is good. It does for warriors give rage, so warriors make sure to pop your berserker rage on cooldown.
Yeah, it's like a dot on you, not a nova like on Vial. It's a dot on you.
So the key is decursing the life drain. Do not get stuck in a blizzard, and spread out for the blizzard. And simply healing through it. This is a healer fight. There's not a lot that DPS can do about this, except hit the boss obviously. I believe it has 3 million health. And yeah, I don't believe there's an enrage or anything like. It's simply rotating these 2 phases. So you have the first 45 seconds is phase 1. After that, it will be taken to the air, where after 5 ice bolts and 1 frost breath, it will be landing in the middle again. At that point, we go back to phase 1. And then every 67 seconds, it rotates like that again. We're going back and forth between phase 1 and 2. I believe that is mostly it. Mechanically, it's not too difficult of a fight. Damage-wise, it is a lot. Ideally, you want to be popping greater frost protection potions on cooldown here, for obvious reasons, as well as popping shadow protection for pre-pot, as well as frost. And if you're a warrior, Downflash set is encouraged.
It will help the healers a lot for the blizzard when the blizzard does come. So instead of wasting their global cooldowns on low health players, they can heal the Blizzard players.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that is really it.
One thing. When the ice blocks are out, and they're for range DPS, if you find out that you can stand behind the ice balls or ice cubes or frost traps and DPS the boss, don't do it. If you stand behind the ice block and you shoot through the ice block and DPS the boss, when the ice ball lands, there's a direct passage from you or through to you and kill you, even if you're standing behind the ice cube. So don't stand behind the ice cube and DPS, even if you can. Stand next to it and DPS and then move in.
Good addition.
That's an issue, or that you can DPS through it, but if you do, the boss can also kill you through when it lands.
Oh yeah, and when the frost breath, when the big ice bomb lands,
Yeah.
it breaks the ice block as well. So you don't need to worry about being stuck as an ice block in phase 1. Any questions? Anything more? Saffron, everyone.
Yeah, Saffron is quite easy mechanically.
Mechanically, just make sure.
I don't think LX many people will have frost resistance yet, probably.
I believe that is an issue as well.
So, like anyone on the call now, like, does anyone have lots of frost resistance items or not?
No.
I have a 100 frost resistant.
It's also not worth it losing too much DPS or frost resistant. You don't want greens everywhere because you would lose too much stamina. So don't show up with like 315 frost resistance and full greens because you still need to kill the boss.
Yeah, basically don't go to the auction house for your frost dress. Pick up the good frost dress that you can get.
You get frost dress from quests, or 2 quests that in Nax, or one's outside. That's outside is for the legs. You complete that quest inside Nax by killing Trash, and by killing Trash, there's a chance you can get a quest drop for a ring with 25 frost resist on. But to complete that quest, it's expensive. It's a 1 Arcanite bar and a blue sapphire. And the legs and the ring, a ring will give you 25 frost resist. The legs will give you 40. You can enchant them with 10 extra frost resist, so you can have 75 frost resist on 2 decent items.
And your tier 2 helm gives everybody 10.
Yeah, and you can enchant tier 2 helm with 10 frost resist too, so that's at least 3 decent items that we should all at least have. And then you can craft stuff when we get the runes and stuff from the trash, and we pick it up and stuff.
You can also farm
Yeah, the
Winter Shield
echo-
juices
yeah,
on the
Winter Shield.
Chimeras in Winter Spring, which gives 15 frost res extra.
So what I was just going to say really as well is because I don't think we've promoted it, and I don't think we should expect everyone now over the next like 7 days to go crazy and farm like loads of crap frost resistance gear. So don't stress on that. If you need to choose what to do between now and when it comes out, if you haven't got consumables, etc., that should be still your main focus. Don't worry so much around the frost resistance gear. Like, we'd give it a go regardless of if we had none. We would still try it if we got this far in the first raid or second night or whatever. We'd still give it all a go without. But like Birag said, we should. How quick do you think Birag would get those 2 items?
Those 2 items, hopefully we can get them the first week. Like the legs, we should be able to get the first week. And the ring, if it drops like the AQ trash quest, it might take us 2 resets or 2 or 3 resets before we get the quest drop. But
There's also the trinket from the engineering You need to be an engineer to use it. 15 frost resistance.
The only other thing to say, I better not talk too much, and my missus will kill me. But if you haven't already, for some classes, whipper root tubers as well, really good thing to go and farm in Felwood. I don't believe casters or healers will need to farm them because they'll be using demonic rune / mana pot. But as a melee, for definite, and a tank, you want to be farming whipper root tubers from Felwood. And the engineers, there is another trinket, isn't there? Not a trinket, a use thing. You can only use it once every 15 minutes, but it only protects you from 600 frost damage. I can't remember what it's called, Alex. It's called
Gyro Freeze Ice Reflector, I think.
Yep.
No,
it's like a white ice deflector, isn't it?
Deflector, yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
That's
but that doesn't share cooldown with anything, so anyone who's an engineer, we should all... I'd have no idea. Where does the recipe come from? Is it bought from a vendor? I haven't got it yet.
Winter Spring vendor.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, but that would be good. I think it's bind on... Is it bind on equipped?
It's not bind.
Yep, it's bind on equipped.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so even if we've got one engineer that could make it, we could even just get them to make it and forget the recipe. But yeah, if you're an engineer, that would also be a useful thing to have as well.
You do not need to be an engineer to use it.
Ah, there we go. Well, we need 40.
Everyone can have them.
Gyro Freeze Ice Reflector requires engineering.
It's not Iron Gyro Freeze Ice Reflector we're talking about, it's Ice Deflector.
Ice Deflector, oh, okay, sorry.
It's Ice Deflector is a use with 5 charges that absorbs 600 frost damage for a minute. As Extra said, it doesn't share any cooldowns, so it's a strict bonus.
And of course, greater frost resistance potions.
Throughout the entire fight. This, like I said, boss has 3 million health. This is going to be a long fight. And the more frost rest and the more frost protection we have, the better, because this is going to be a lot of healing. And it's going to be really tough on mana efficiency for healers as well. Like, if they spam Prayer of Healing, you will be within a minute. And this fight is gonna be quite long. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes 6 minutes.
I have 110 pots.
I would say as well, probably casters again, healers might not use as many frost protection potions because you'll be needing to use mana potions. So a healer would probably use one on the pull and like before pull, and that would be it. Like they'd probably just use ice and shadow, and that's it. And then it'll be mana pot, mana pot, mana pot, mana pot, mana pot. Like, yeah. So casters and healers focus more on the major mana pots than probably the frost. You know, once you've got 10 or 15 or 20, you know, just focus more on the mana.
And there's another fight where tier 2 8 of 8 for priest is really good. Because greater heal rank 1 is quite mana efficient with the renew. Right, any more additions to this? Again, this might be quite tricky, especially gear check. Just have a lot of frost rest.
Yeah, my pet is gonna be sad on this fight.
Yeah, probably just don't put it out. Then we come to the final fight of the entire game. Is this positioning? Oh, that is positioning level. Kel'Thuzad, a 3-phase boss. First phase, start off boring. We start off hitting ads. There will be 3 types of ads. There will be soldiers. If these touch, these will be. I'm going to show you. Let's show the map. We're going to be in the middle, and there's going to be ads all around us. They're going to spawn around the room, and they're going to be slowly moving towards the middle. Slowly being very much a keyword. We want to kill them before they reach the middle. Soldiers, very squishy, but if they touch anything, they will deal 3k shadow damage to everyone within about 10-15 yards. Soul Weavers also move slowly to the right, but they are tankier. Casters prioritize these. If they come near their target, they will do a knockback and do about 7,000 shadow damage. It's not good. Don't let these reach a raid either. And finally you have the Abomination. These ones, casters just completely ignore. And if all goes well, this is the only healing that needs to be done. These run quickly. They'll be running into the middle. They are tauntable. Tanks pick them up. They'll be hitting fairly hard and applying mortal wounds over time, decreasing healing received by 10%. So all melee will be hitting these. Shouldn't be any problem. Ranged focus Soul Weaver. Healers, if there's nothing else to do, feel free to wand Soul Weavers, soldiers. Again, soldiers have about no health whatsoever, like 5,000 HP. So they will be going down and they take ages moving. This keeps going for, it's like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Not entirely sure on the exact timing, but for 5 minutes we're going to be fending on these things off. Oh yeah, and if you have any pets, make sure they're on passive, because if there are mobs along the corners that are just there to keep you in the middle, and if your pet runs out and pulls those, that is difficulty that is not needed. Right. So after about 5 minutes of that, we are coming up on the actual Kel'Thuzad phase. Kel'Thuzad has a lot of abilities. First of all, positioning. We want to be positioning around the room in 3 layers like this. So we want to have 4 melee clumps. These are not individual melee players, instead they'll be roughly 4 players with our current rate composition. We'll be having 1 healer in each of these. And in the outer ring, we'll be having the casters. The key is to keep 10-yard distance from everyone else. Melee do not have this luxury, so too bad. And one of the where it's going to be red dots are also tanks. In particular, ideal if we spread the tanks out, 1 on each side. So abilities wise, first of all, starting off easy, he has a Frostbolt. It's a 2-second cast, and it does about 10,000 damage to the primary aggro target. This is a lot of damage. He can be interrupted, that's the key. This needs to be interrupted or the main tank might just straight up die, as it's often followed up by, say, an auto attack. Again, he is the shared highest auto attack damage together with Saffron. Even though he's a lich. It doesn't look very scary, but he is. Second ability, not interruptible, Frostbolt Volley. He does about 2,750 to 3,500 frost damage and reduces movement speed. Hits everyone in the room, it's instant cast and can't be interrupted, used every 15 seconds. Again, going to have to heal that up and make sure to be popping your greater frost protection potions. Chains of Kel'Thuzad. He casts this roughly every 60 seconds or so. He mind controls 5 people all at once. Your size and damage will be increased by 200%, much like Scram. Your healing done will be increased by 500%. If you have healing, you will focus on buffing and healing Kel'Thuzad, which is not great. Can be CC'd by any ability that would normally work on humanoids, just like Scram. Polymorphs, Hammer of Justices, everything such out. But it's important that we still maintain position. It will always target the main tank, and as such, it will also completely wipe threat. So we are going to have to make sure to have multiple tanks ready to go. So if this is the main tank, hopefully one of the other 3 will be ready to pick it up. Next up, Mana Detonation. Cast this fairly often, 20-second cooldown. It's a debuff that is randomly applied to 1 player mana using player. It will explode after 4 seconds, dealing this has arcane damage, weirdly enough it's nature damage actually, based on max mana to all players within 10 yards, but not to the player themselves. And it will burn half of their current mana pool. So if everyone is following positions, no one is stood closer than 10 yards. This will not only hit 1 person, and that will be the person who gets the debuff. It sucks, because it just kills your mana, but nothing we can do. Shadow Fissure. This one goes out fairly often. Summons a very noticeable red fissure around a targeted player, which does about a bunch of damage. Like, there's no surviving that amount of damage after 3 seconds as a Void Blast. So the key here is, if you get it, ideally you want to move backwards, because if you move to the side, you're moving into other people, and they don't have anywhere to move. If you move backwards into people, they can also back up, making some more space. You do not want to stand in the Shadow Fissure. The biggest problem with Shadow Fissure is if it goes on the main tank, as the main tank will then have to take a step back as well, together with the rest of the group, and everyone is going to have to reposition as a result. It's going to be a bit of a pain if that happens, but we must be prepared for it. Then we have Frost Blast, and this is kind of the reason we are spread. But the main reason. This says 30 seconds, on the PTR it's closer to 70 seconds or so he cast it. It places an ice block effect on the targeted player and all players within 10 yards, rendering them unable to perform any action. You're completely stunned, you cannot bubble it off, you cannot have someone DI it, you cannot petrify flask, you can't do anything. No buttons can be pressed. And this effect will continue to chain to anyone within 10 yards of anyone affected. Meaning if we stood clumped up, the Frost Blast would be bouncing around killing everyone very quickly. As it deals about 130% of their max HP in damage over 5 seconds. So since it does 130% of your max HP, you will need heals. There is no survive in this if you're not healed. In fact, you will die after 4 seconds, as it will tick for, 26%, and after 4 seconds you have ticked for 102%, and you die. So, yeah. The key is making sure that mind controls are sheeped as soon as possible. Tanks need to be ready to pick up the target fast as possible. When the mind control is about to go out, much like twins, make sure to watch your ignite, as it is a complete threat wipe, and if he comes running for you, positioning is very much in trouble. He's not tauntable. Mana detonation, this is the most non-mechanic out of the mechanics, I suppose. Interrupt, that's mostly a melee thing, but mages can do it as well, of course. Shadow Fissures, need to make sure to move backwards, again, out from kill to zap. And then Frost Blast, make sure 10 yards stack. No one within 10 yards. And this should go well. Lastly, Phase 3, which is very much largely... It's like Nefarian. He will keep doing the same mechanics as he did before. But at 40% health, he will also call in for help, getting 5 Nerubian Cryptlords, which are named Guardian of Ice Crown. They're spawning one by one, coming in over a couple of seconds. And they have 2 abilities. First of all, of course, they'll be spawning in, I believe they spawn at the edge of the room. So they'll be running for random targets. Probably healer. They have 2 abilities. First of all, Blood Tap, which is a buff they cast on themselves that does plus 15% to all their damage, plus 10% size. And they can stack up to 99 times, effectively infinite. And it doesn't really say here, but Blood Tap is cast every time the Guardian switches target or someone dies. So if at Phase 3 you start having deaths, these will start hitting harder and harder. If you are losing aggro or need to taunt swap, that would make them go stronger. And this lasts until the fight's over, so we don't want them gaining these stacks. Now there is one thing we can do, which is that they're undead. You can shackle them. Priest can do that. However, if more than 3 of the Guardians are CC'd at the same time, so more than 3, so we can CC 3 of them, then they will all break their CC. So at all points there will be 2 of them running loose, and 3 being CC'd. So we need to assign 3 priests, who will be casting it on whichever one comes closest to them. And that's it. No one else can use Shackle. And off-tanks need to pick up the remaining 2. And of course we need to make sure that the off-tanks never lose aggro, because at that point they've gained blood tap stacks. And people don't die, because if people die, they're going to gain blood tap stacks. The off-tank's going to take more damage. If the off-tank dies, and the as such changes target, that is 2 stacks. So don't have that happen. That is really that is really all of it, really quickly summed up. The key is to, again, keep your position throughout the fight. Frost Blast must never chain. And the annoying part is, of course, Frost Blast can also go on melee. And since these are stacks of melee, they will be, all of them will be frost stacked. All of them will be Frost Blasted by this. It's important, of course, that the melee group also maintain 10-yard difference, which should not be a problem. Remember to keep max attack range. But since 4 people were getting Frost Blasted and taking 130% of their max health in damage over 5 seconds, healing on those very quick, very important. On the casters, it might be fine getting just 1 heal off quickly. But on the Frost Blast in melee, 4 of them are going to need it fast.
Sounds horrific.
Yeah.
How hard do the Guardians hit in phase 3? I wonder.
Exactly, no exact numbers.
If they don't hit that hard, anyone could tank them, for example.
Yeah, no, I think they hit like usual trash. Like they will be hitting tanks for 1,000, 1,500 or so, I think. 1,000 to 1,500 sounds about right.
Yeah, so they hit hard.
They do hit hard. We need tanks on them. And they summon at 40%, so you're going to be tanking this for almost the entire, almost half the boss fight.
Yeah, I was curious, maybe we could skip tanks on the Guardians if they don't hit that hard.
And
have someone else tank them.
Yeah.
Or away from the raid, I mean.
Yeah, no, I think we're gonna have to use tank. And since they don't do any AoE or such, the ideal thing to do is just drag them into the middle. Also, killing them is not an option. They have a lot of health. In fact, they have as much health as Kel'Thuzad himself. So you cannot kill them.
Yeah, and if you start killing them, then threat becomes an issue, and they may switch targets, get more damage, etc.
But again, they have the same health as Kel'Thuzad, so there's no reason to be attacking them over Kel'Thuzad. Which I'm going to be keeping an eye on warriors, make sure they don't use cleave just because there's an ad, because those ads are worthless.
Also, in phase 1, it's good to know that you shouldn't just go into like all the mobs, in the little tunnels, because if you just go in and AoE them down, you can actually bug the boss out, and it's like a 5 to 10 minute respawn on the boss.
Do you mean moving into the little alcoves?
Yeah, where the little ads come that you need to make sure they don't go in the middle. Do not get any of the mages, or was it? Because you can book it
no
out.
one should ever do that, because we do not gain anything from that anyway. Even if you kill them, they are not the mobs we actually need to kill. They are merely there to look scary and keep you away from the area. If you kill those, more abominations will spawn when needed.
Yeah, I've seen it happen loads of times.
Hopefully no one will do that. Right, that's all the mechanics. Of course, this will take a lot of getting used to and such.
How long does the fissure last? Does it say?
The fissure, I believe it's about 3 seconds.
No, not activation. The duration after it's activated.
It's instant.
So after 3 seconds it blasts its damage, and then
It's gone.
Disappears. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I was thinking of the void zone. It lasts for some time.
Yeah.
Can you taunt the boss, Alex? I'm guessing you can.
Kel'Thuzad is not tauntable.
So the tank swaps, how are we doing that?
The tank swap is...
Oh, but it's mind controlled, so we have to manage threat, basically.
The mind control, when the mind control goes out, again, it's a complete threat wipe on everyone. Which is why mages need to drop their ignites, be very cautious on that. And tanks just need to make sure they hit it hard, all 3 tanks, and whoever hits it hardest is going to tank next.
Tank battle.
It doesn't say there that it wipes all threat on everyone. I was thinking it wipes threat on the target that gets mind control, or on the targets that get mind control.
Ah yeah, no. It's a complete threat wipe on everyone. Otherwise it would be like Oru, and eventually you'd have to have like DPS start tanking, like a mage start tanking or something like that. It'd be weird. Yeah, again, he has... I don't actually know his hit point, but it is a very long fight. He's not very squishy, even though he might look like it. He will take a lot of beatings.
How's the blood tap mechanic activated? How often does it happen and how does it trigger? Because I don't see that.
The blood tap, yeah, again, this description is faulty. The blood tap triggers every time it swaps the aggro or someone dies. So we need to avoid deaths after 40%, at least excessive deaths, as well as over aggro. But over aggro should not be an issue. No one should be hitting these, and hopefully healer aggro should not be an issue.
So essentially we just leave him alone?
Yes.
And then blood tap will not be an issue.
3 of them are going to be focused by the priest. That's the priest's job. Everyone else just needs to look away. And 2 of them are going to be tanked by the off tank. And yeah, that's it.
It's just a tank problem and a healer problem. And
Exactly.
a priest shackle problem. So yeah, everyone else can forget about them. Where do they spawn, Alex, you know?
I believe they spawn kind of randomly around the room.
So do we, as tanks, off tanks, go and get them?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So we can forget all rules at that point, just run, grab it. Do we stay on the outside or then bring them back into the middle?
Come into the middle again.
Okay.
Quick as you can.
Yeah. Cool.
Maybe hunters can pick 3 of them and stay close by to the priest.
Nah, I don't think it's worth it, mate. I don't think it's worth it. Just let the tanks worry about it.
Well,
And also, I think the amount of healing that's going to go out, like off tanks, you can't just taunt and sunder it. Like you could AoE taunt the ad, would be smart probably, because you can't use it on anything else anyway. And then do as much as you can as you're running back, as quick as you possibly can. I'm guessing we don't wear zero frost resist on this boss, do we?
No. People should be wearing frost rest due to this, the frostbolt volley.
Oh, okay. Maybe
As-
less than you think it was less, or
You probably go in with the same set you're wearing. Like, it's the only actual damage. The damage is auto attacks, it's frostbolts, interrupted, it's frostbolt volley. That will be taken regardless of what we do. Chains of Kel'Thuzad, that's the mind control. If we have very quick stuns on that, we will not notice it. It's mana detonation. This will not be doing any damage as long as people are close. Shadow Fissure, we can move out of that. Frost Blast, that will be doing damage.
And mana detonation, it seems, is a reason why Retribution Paradise can't DPS on Kel'Thuzad. They'll kill the melee DPS if they go in the melee.
Yeah, that sounds about right actually.
4 seconds.
What about 4 seconds to get where though?
Yeah, that's the issue.
yeah, key dream Vera.
Did we have that many ranged? Did we have that many ranged?
I do think so. I think we have, what are we bringing? We're bringing like 12 melee-ish, 4 tanks, which ends up being 4 on each mark. It's 16.
Yeah, we're
They're not the melee, the casters, so that I mean. Do we have that?
Hunters, isn't it? We're taking 13 maybe.
Is there no way to run?
I don't think so. I think you'll be stuck on the outside exorcism.
No, I'll be healing then. I won't be.
That's
I wonder if the bubble will cancel the debuff.
It will not. You cannot remove this in any way. Petri Flask, Bubble, Ice Block. It goes through immunities.
I was thinking if bubble, you can the retardation can stay in melee until he gets the first mana detonation. Then we can bubbles, and then bubbles and stays out until.
Why are you worrying about a class that does 0 damage?
Oh.
It's still damage.
I know, I'm joking. I just like to do it.
It is damage even if it's slow.
The fight takes forever. You might want to seal on the boss. So if I'm not there, we might have a holy color back into skills.
You'll be there, Dio. You'll just be running in and out, mate, to heal.
Yeah, every 10 seconds, the holy paladin can pop a seal on it and last for 40 seconds.
Maybe you can make a hybrid. Is there a hybrid spec for DPS and holy, something like that, and switch gear during this fight?
Shocking.
No, it's called healing. It's called healing.
Don't make Dio so what he's doing. He knows better than anyone. But again, this fight again will be casters and healers. I imagine you'll be popping mana pots as well because it's a long fight. So again, like you do want frost protection potions, but as a caster or a healer, you'll be chugging mana pots like no tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I think phase 1 is roughly 5 minutes, and you're going to be doing some casting, but try to not burn all your mana. Try to be a bit conservative, but not conservative enough that they reaches, obviously.
How much health do the soldiers have?
Soldiers have about 5,000. The Soul Weaver less so. I guess it.
Soldiers can be handled by the hunters, so here casters can save their mana. You can stop and drink during.
Yeah, soldiers. A lot of people even recommend healers simply deal with them, as there's really not a lot of healing that needs to be done. Let's give this a fire check, shall we? So soldiers. Oh, is that? Yes, okay, never mind. They do not have 5,000 health, they have 2,200, 2,300.
These are PTR logs?
Yep.
Maybe it will be adjusted in the live version?
No, I don't believe so.
And the Soul Weaver?
The Soul Weaver... 70.
They need a lot of damage on them. Yeah.
Yeah, 71.3, so yeah, it's about there.
So... the soldiers can be handled by the hunters, everyone else can save their mana, one auto shot from each, and they'll die.
The melee will be sorting out the abominations that have 92k. Then finally, how much does Keldazad have? Let's give that a check. 3.2 million. So he's rather tanky, but it's not ridiculous numbers. From a pure damage standpoint, you need to do a lot more on Patrick.
Yeah, Patrick was the DPS check, isn't he?
He was. I don't. Today he won't be.
Is there a weak aura, LX, for mages to use to identify mind control targets?
I believe that is a question for Bilgrim. I think he has something like that sorted. Like a button you can spam to target only players and then stop your casting and do
But if there's, let's say there's 5, there's 6 mages, probably 5 mages, but like if there's 5 mind control targets, like how are they going to decide who to sheep? Because obviously you can only sheep one each, one different player each. So.
Luck.
Yeah.
Luck based. If 5 mages are sheeping, unless the mages are all being mind controlled, then.
Be easy to make a macro.
No, it wasn't about the fact of 5v5, it was more a fact of if 3 of them target the same player and cast sheep instantly, then they all think, oh.
The mages are most likely going to be spread out. We're going to put one here, one there, one there, one there. So each of them is going to like feel like one different one is convenient to mind control. Most of the time I think they aren't going to overlap. And if they are
using marks?
For anything in particular on this fight?
Yeah.
Probably on the melee clumps, I imagine, but even that's not necessary.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could promote the mages and have them macro in a mark for polymorph.
Question
How
for
long does
Gabriel.
the mind control last? Do we know?
Let's just check.
Come on, Ned.
Just to say, Bill's already set up the macro for
I figured.
targeting players, and all the mages have got it.
Yeah, I was thinking more as well for like raid leader perspective. Like, what could I use or Alex use to see?
20 seconds.
You know, in like a grid. 20 seconds, did you say?
That's right.
You can put it in. You can make a weak core easy enough. All you have to do is just do the debuff. The one I made you for what was it? The shadow debuff.
Oh yeah, Ebon Rock. Yeah.
Just change the spell and that to whatever the mind control one is.
Okay, cool.
By the way, it also shows up on the mage's decursive.
I've got to shoot, guys. Sorry, I've got work tomorrow.
That's alright. I think we're about done anyway, so thank you for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It was really in-depth.
Nice work, Alex.
Alex,
people
I'm
learn
very disappointed in this talk.
Aye.
Just simply by the fact that you didn't say, I'm Alex and welcome to my Ned talk.
I didn't even say conal frontage a single time.
You just said it. Woo!
I said it. Yeah.
Plenty more opportunities to use it in the raid.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so the detonate miner seems to go at 20 to 25 seconds. Why is he casting two different frostbolts? Let's go quick.
He's just down ranking, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, that's smart. We're looking at like 50, 60 seconds on the frost blast. And Shadow Fissures 20, 25 again. Oh, 18 on this good.
Just a comment for Warlocks. Wherever Alex said interruptible, keep in mind that Curse of Tongues will work on an interruptible spell.
Are you sure on that? I think I read somewhere that.
What's extra?
On any frost resistance boss, are you all going to void sack? Or
Yeah, we could.
maybe just initially for the first few weeks or something? Like, you won't be life tapping as much as well, probably. You need to be careful, obviously, of life tap as well.
I try to limit my life taps even in current conflict and past conflicts. Something I try to do.
Yeah, I bet Wayne doesn't. I bet he's like chugging that life tap button, like.
That engineering little thing that absorbs 600 frost, what does that share cooldown with?
Nothing.
It costs a frost oil, so it's gonna be expensive.
Does it share? Doesn't share it with demonic rune? No, don't think. No, I think it's.
It has 5 charges though, so it's not that expensive.
It's 15-minute cooldown, so you'll only use it one per try.
600 damage reduction every 15 minutes is not that much. Maybe focus more on the Juju. On the Juju with the 15 frost resistance, I think that's gonna absorb a lot more than this.
This is the last thing that you should get, but it doesn't cost you, it costs you gold, but it doesn't cost you anything to use in combat.
Yeah, so one ice deflector per fight should help.
You have 1 per 5 fights, since it has 5 charges and a long cooldown.
We won't be doing 5 total 15.
So it's not expensive if
No.
it adds 5 chargers. So
Yeah, don't worry, we'll make it for everyone. Don't get it, we'll get it as a present.
Birag, did you hear that?
Don't know if he agreed.
He's pretending.
before
Peter,
that.
what's going on? No, I'll pay for him. I'll buy him. But B-Rag's got to make him, so he's got to sit and craft him.
Yeah.
It won't be like the rocket boots, B-Rag, I promise.
I wrote 2 letters in officer chat.
What, one an F and one a U?
Oh, you do it so well.
I have 42 boots I haven't used yet.
Good times.
Don't worry, we've got a plan for them, don't worry. Hide and seek in the open world, I think.
Yeah. That's a classic.
Thanks for that, Alex. That was really good.
People learned on. Hope it wasn't too boring. Hope no one fell asleep.
You're a good teacher, Alex. You have lots of patience.
Oh, thank you.
I'm gonna sear the burning horseman image into my retinas.